There's three of us, yeah. You want to wait? Do you want me to shoot her a call?
No, I think she'll understand.
We have,
I'll give you guys a minute to get unpacked and ready.
we have about an hour and a half of presentations.
Yeah, I know.
That's it?
I think this says Amy and Tom.
So you ready, Robert?
Ready for what?
Ready for anything.
That I am.
If everyone could please be seated, we will begin the meeting in just a minute. Okay. Well, greetings, everyone. I'm going to open our City Council meeting tonight. And Council Member Krebs is on her way. She should be just a few minutes away, but we have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and start. Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Jean Goss.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Edward Garcia.
Present.
Councilmember Rachel Arizmendi is previously excused. Councilmember Kelly Krebs is, for the record, not present, but on her way. And Councilmember Robert Parkhurst.
I am here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Councilmember Parkhurst will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and inspiration.
So if you could please stand if you're able. And ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, as I was looking at the upcoming calendar, as well as the agenda for tonight, I noticed a theme of public safety. We've got a presentation tonight on fire safety and wildfire actions. We have the Fire Festival, which I'm sure the mayor will give the details of. And we also have the International Shakeout Day on October 20th. And so it seems like October is a really good time for us all to take a second to remember what we should do before and after a disaster. You know, and just as we had done with some of the brush clearing and the ready, set, go that the fire department were educating our residents on, we should also be thinking about kind of what we should do if an earthquake comes, the drop, cover, and hold on. And I'd like to just kind of highlight two things that I saw in doing just a little bit of refreshing on what we should all be doing around emergencies and disasters. And so one is to create, make an emergency plan. So to create that family emergency communications plan that has an out-of-state contact, or at least an out-of-area contact, plan of where you should go to if you get separated, and have that supply kit that includes food and water for several days, as well as a flashlight, fire extinguisher, and a whistle. Then also is to protect your home. And in this case, you know, I was thinking about it from the earthquake perspective for Shakeout Day. And that's, you know, doing things like securing heavy items like bookcases, refrigerators, water heaters, televisions, and any objects that hang on walls. Also, it's recommended to store heavy and breakable objects on lower shelves. And so, you know, there's a couple of great resources out there for everybody in the community to take a look at. There is shakeout.org and ready.gov, and all of them have great information for all of us to look at and kind of remember to make our plans and protect our homes and prepare in the event of an emergency. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Parkhurst. So with that, we'll turn our attention to the agenda, and I'd like to see if I can get a motion for approval or amendment.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We have an agenda. Also need to get a motion for approval for reading resolutions and ordinances.
I move for the City Council to read all ordinances and resolutions by title only and waive the reading in full.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries as well. Which brings us to mayor and city council reports. Who wants to go first?
I'll be brief, Mr. Mayor. We've been meeting quite a bit recently, so there's not much new to report out on. I think almost everybody at the dais was at a wonderful reception today at the Sierra Madre Public Library to celebrate, and I don't want to steal any thunder, but to celebrate the wonderful contribution from the state that was provided to us, and one of the big help was from Assemblymember Holden. He was there, gave some words. We also heard from individuals from Friends of the Library, as well as we had former employees of the library, current employees of the library, and members and former members of the Board of Trustees there. It was a wonderful reception. It was a little warm, but at least we had some shade. But it was a great day to celebrate a great win for the city of Sierra Madre and the Sierra Madre Library.
Right. Sir.
And I'll be brief as well. I was also at the fabulous library reception. And I was also fortunate enough to travel up to an event in San Francisco over the weekend. It was the California Community Choice Aggregation event celebrating 20 years since the law was passed that allowed us to create community choice aggregation. So that's the ability for us as Sierra Madre and 30 some odd cities here in the Los Angeles and Ventura counties to buy our own electricity. And so we got to hear from the author of that bill, former state senator Carol Migden, as well as see all the other different community choice aggregation organizations across the state, whether it is Marin Clean Energy, Peninsula Clean Energy, East Bay Clean Energy, San Diego, I don't know what their full name is. So there's just a whole host of them. It was a delightful event, and I also got a chance to spend some time with the board members of the Clean Power Alliance. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Would you like to make a report?
Only that I'm sorry I'm late, but no report.
Okay, well, I have a kind of a brief report. I did attend happily and was honored to attend the Women's Club Triple Celebration on Saturday, celebrating 100 years of our Women's Club and its incredible influence on this community in so many different ways. And it was very well attended, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful occasion just another opportunity to see just how much volunteerism and community spirit there is in this city. Just a tremendous event. And I wanted to thank the Women's Club for inviting me and for putting on such a wonderful event. Senator Portantino was there, representing from Congresswoman Chu's office was there, and Assemblymember Holden was there. So he's been in Sierra Madre quite a bit lately, and he'll see him in a few minutes. Also, I was at the library grant ceremony today, and I don't want to have a lot more to add to it, what I've already heard about it, except that, my goodness, what an occasion it was to celebrate a $10 million grant that we hadn't expected, and that has completely enabled us to rethink our library to rebuild it, to renovate it, to get it up to a point where it's going to be a 21st century state-of-the-art library, the kind of which our people deserve. And so I was just elated to be able to be the MC of that ceremony, and was really inspired by the words of Assemblyman Holden and the words of former Board of Trustee Rich Proctor, who just nailed it on how pivotal a library can be to a community, especially our library is to our community. So I was really happy to see so many people show up too. That was great. I've been asked by staff to make a few announcements too, which is not really part of my report, but I'm gonna go for it anyway. And this goes right to the library, which I think some of you heard about this, but maybe most of you haven't. Following a rigorous review process, the California State Library has awarded our public library a Building Forward grant in the amount of $334,605. So the news just keeps getting better, which will be used to fund seismic structural reinforcement, window replacement, fire suppression equipment, HVAC repair and install, asbestos abatement, and ADA updates. So just add that to the list of things we have to be thankful for with our library. There'll be a second water tour for those of you who are interested in learning how our water system works in this city. It's a kind of cool thing. I've done it. It's well worth doing. We're going to have another tour. It starts at the City Yards on Saturday, October 22nd at 10 a.m. So put that on your calendars. You can go to the Sierra Madre Facebook page to sign up. And it provides you with a really comprehensive overview of the entire water supply, production, treatment, distribution system, and conservation programs. It's a real education, and it's kind of fun too, because you're getting out and about and seeing all these things you didn't even know existed. On October 6th, the Sierra Madre Fire Department and Sierra Madre Library will be hosting the Big Pumpkin Smash at Station 41. That's always popular. This is where residents decorate the pumpkins and watch them get dropped from the top of the fire station. Yay. Call the library to reserve a pumpkin or bring your own. And finally, on Saturday, October 8th, is the annual Fire Prevention Festival at Memorial Park and the Sierra Madre, first annual, we hope it's going to be first annual, Sierra Madre Car Show will be at the park as well, out on the street from 9 in the morning to 12 p.m. So that concludes my report. With that, we turn our attention to public comments on anything that is not on our agenda tonight. We ask that you fill out one of these yellow participation cards, and you will be limited to 3 minutes amount of time when you make your comment. Madam City Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, before we call the speakers, I'd like to announce that city staff received 3 emails on items not on the agenda. All emails were forwarded to the City Council for review and consideration and have been uploaded to the city's website. At this time, we'd like to call the first speaker for items not on the agenda, Amy Anton.
Hi, I'm Amy Anton, a Sierra Madre resident. I'm here to talk about the pool. I started going to the pool in 2005 when my twins were babies. They're now 17, soon to be 18. At that time, the city was in charge of the pool. They had mommy and me lessons. We went to rec swim. On my own, I went to lap swim. It was a great place and experience for my family and myself. Then I was sad when it left, and then when Waterworks came, I embraced the changes, and they did a great job. They were open every day. They never had a staffing shortage. The water temperature, you could swim year-round. It was like thriving, happy place for my kids, for myself. Lap swim, rec swim, lessons. My kids learned to swim there. Then the YMCA came along, and I've seen the pool just deteriorate. It's a sad, kind of depressing state, actually. You cannot access it. The hours are horrible. Like, you can't go midday during the summer. They're barely open on the weekends. There's been numerous times I would try to go swimming before school, put my suit on, get there. Oh, the chemicals aren't ready. Like, who wants to go to the pool at 6 in the morning, then you have to turn around and go home? And then after school, I would try to go after school, which is, you know, when you're working, it's hard to go to the pool. So you try to go after school. Then you get a call, oh, there's no lifeguards today. Sorry, we have to like cancel. And it would be like, well, what are you going to do to compensate this? Nothing. There's no compensation. When are you gonna be open, increase your hours? So we're working on it, we're working on it, we're working on it. At one time, I just like canceled my membership because it's pointless. Why pay for this pool that you can't even go to? I also tutor a bunch of kids, and families are saying the same thing. The kids can't access the pool. I see it on Facebook. People aren't happy with the state of the pool. So I'd like you to seriously think about bringing waterworks back or doing something. I know at the last meeting they said that, oh, they'll stay open and maybe try to open more in the summer, but what about the rest of the year? Like Saturdays are only open half day, closed on Sundays. Like, this was a place where people could go exercise every day. Never once was there a staffing shortage when it was the city pool, when it was the waterworks. This is the first time it's just been in this, like, I think it's a sad state to see that pool empty. In the summer, it used to be go swimming, the kids, all the summer camp kids were there, and they're closed. So, thank you, and I hope that you take all those comments into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anton.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Claire Mclean, followed by Deb Sheridan.
Hello, Claire Mclean on West Sierra Madre Boulevard. I am aware that the Meadows project is that you guys are probably passing it, and I just ask if you could let the public know, the residents that care about this area, know when you're starting the construction, I think, because I'm actually feel very spiritual about the trees and the land and the wildlife, and I would like to know, I think it should be public what day you're starting so that we can honor this area, especially the mature trees that are going to be cut down, so that we can actually have a time to do that it should not be done in secret. And that's my main thing. I don't want to have to go there every day and say, oh gosh, are they getting ready to cut these trees down? I would like to know when. And I hope that you can at least give us that, because I think that would be really nice. You know, a lot of people don't care about that kind of stuff, but I do. And I think it would be a time that we could really take that space and honor it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. Technically, that is an item that is on our agenda tonight, and I'm not supposed to be letting people speak on non-agenda items, but I'm happy to let you do so.
Find out where to put this. I just wanted to know. And how would we find that out?
City staff will respond to that.
Okay, they'll let us know. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Deb Sheridan, followed by Ted Andrews.
Deb Sheridan, Valley Vista Drive. Good afternoon, council members. I'm speaking, and this is not on the agenda because it is about meetings. I'm speaking about your semi-secret meetings and not about what is on tonight's agenda. So please don't cut me off, Mr. Mayor. As you know, I have been following the Meadows project from the beginning for over 2 years and have spoken at most city council and planning commission meetings. I planned my very short 1-week trip to Boston to see my young grandchildren around these very meetings. What do you do, Mr. Mayor? But schedule not 1, but 2 semi-secret meetings to rush this poorly designed project through. Why the rush? Why did the Planning Commission approve this project after they were still in the process of asking quite relevant questions without adequate responses? Why are you running for an unheard of 3rd term, Mr. Mayor? I had a conversation with the wife of a former Sierra Madre mayor who said this has not happened in over 100 years. I've been told that isn't true, but I do know it hasn't happened in the 35 years that I've been living here. You also cut off a Harvard-educated lawyer at the last special meeting. Is that any way to govern? I recently spoke to another resident, and I'd like to end by quoting him, if you don't cut me off. Quote, I know our council isn't corrupt, so I wonder why they go out of their way to act as though they are, unquote. And we all know the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sheridan. Thank you, Mr. Sheridan.
Mr. Mayor, Ted Andrews, followed by Ted Sarkaria.
Hello, just kind of an FYI that there's a homeless encampment on the Mount Wilson Trail when you go up by the garbage cans. I just thought with fire season and fire safety, I just thought I'd give you guys an FYI.
Mr. Mayor, if it's all right with you, we normally take the cards as we receive them. We've just had a request from a resident to move hers up because she's not feeling well. Is that?
Fine.
All right. So then Todd Sarkaria, followed by Nancy Beckham.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Todd Sarkaria, and I'm the SVP of Operations at Waterworks Aquatics. I had the opportunity to provide public comment at the Community Services Commission meeting last Monday. In the meeting, I reaffirmed Waterworks Aquatics' interest in managing the pools at the Sierra Madre Aquatic Center. Based on the Commission and City staff's feedback in the meeting, we would like to provide the residents of Sierra Madre and the Council with additional facts to consider. Number one, the maintenance, upkeep, and improvements made to the Aquatic Center. There's been concern voiced by the city staff about the overall maintenance of the facility. Unfortunately, our agreement with the city was written in a way that was not very clear as to who was responsible for what maintenance and capital improvement costs. It is now much clearly stated in the current agreement. As our agreement neared its end, the city had communicated to us they needed to invest in additional improvements to the Aquatic Center. We are very much open to agreeing to any additional terms set forward in a new agreement, including taking over all maintenance, repairs, and upkeep of the Aquatic Center. Waterworks is also prepared in pledges to reimburse the city for any costs associated with improvements covering the last year of our lease agreement. During the onset of COVID, the next part I wanted to go over was staffing, operating hours, and community access. During the onset of COVID and up until the end of our lease agreement with the city, we were able to expand the hours. We're able to keep the pool open 7 days a week for a total of 101 hours per week. Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. There are no COVID restrictions, and there have not been any restrictions for a very long time that would hinder offering more hours to the community of Sierra Madre. There is also talk about lifeguard shortages and challenges with staffing the Aquatic Center. Waterworks has been able to staff all of our locations throughout the San Gabriel Valley and California as a whole. We have never had to limit our operating hours and or limit the availability of aquatics programs to the communities we serve based on staffing challenges and or lifeguard shortages. In fact, at the start of our agreement with the city and throughout the term of our partnership, we were able to show the council and city staff that we serviced more Sierra Madre residents when compared to the city's enrollment numbers when they operated the pool. Third point would be community events. We hosted and staffed the science class boat races every year. We were saddened to hear that that event was not held the last 2 years due to staffing issues. During our partnership, we hosted a slew of other events, some including the annual Water Safety Day with the Sierra Madre Fire Department, the Huckleberry Fin Fishing Event every March, the 4th of July Parade, for which we open free swim up to the community, to name just a few. The aquatics programs, we offered 8 hours of lap swimming every day. We offered rec swim nearly all hours of the day in the circular pool and multiple hours midday, 7 days per week in the lap pool. We would also match or beat the current cost of lap swim, rec swim, and water aerobics for Sierra Madre residents. Note, we kept the same rec swim prices as the city did for the 8.5 years that we were partnered with you. And lastly, the communication. We're here today, and we will continue to be here every month, in addition to the Community Services Commission meeting, as I was there last week, and we pledge to be there every month for that. So we always do what we say we're gonna do. Actions speak louder than words. We have always and will act in the best interest of the Sierra Madre residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Nancy Beckham, followed by Victoria Martin.
Oops. Can you put that back, please? That one.
Jane, here I am. No, I'll get that. I just apologize. No, you don't get one. And Raquel's not here?
No.
Well, put it in her box. Sure.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Darn it. Definitely in. God,
It would be better if Laura could pass those out for you, Nancy. There you go.
thank you.
Thank you.
I came last Thursday night when you made your vote, and I was sick to my stomach when I left, because although you think that you voted on a very fine development up on the monastery, at the Meadows, there is not going to be any more meadows up there, and that's the part that drives me berserk. I talked about animals. I talked about trees. I think I got through to Gene Goss about the trees because he mentioned it, as did Mr. Parkhurst. So I think I got through to some of you. The part that drives me crazy is that whatever I talked about was totally ignored, and that hurts. That hurts a lot because I really did a lot of research on all of this. And granted, there are winners and losers, and on this particular round, I lost. But I want you to take a good look at this picture. This was waterfront land that was developed by this same developer. Those houses are so huge, if you were down there, you couldn't see the ocean, let alone try to hear it. So I'm just leaving you with that thought because this is your albatross that you have to keep around your neck. However, I always think that if you're going to talk to somebody about something you're upset about, you have to give them something else to think about. You got $250,000 for the new to-be police department because you bought the Bank of America building for the police department, which was great, and it does need to be retrofitted, so you got $250,000 to do that from the developer. Why didn't you get any money for the residents whose land is going to be affected by the traffic? My house is 100 years old. It has never had a sidewalk in front of it. It's about time. But you completely forgot about the residents, and all we have done is come to meetings and tell you about why we're upset. On that note, I'm going to leave, because if I talk anymore, I'm going to get more upset than I already am. I can't see. That's why I'm wearing these stupid glasses, and that's why you didn't see me for 2.5 months. But I wrote you letters. I've done everything I can to participate in being a civic-minded person. I'm very disappointed in you.
Thank you, Mrs. Beckham.
Mr. Mayor, Victoria Martin, followed by Jill Klein.
Hello. My name is Victoria Martin. I live up here in Sierra Madre. I've lived here for over 27 years. I'm here to speak about the pool and waterworks versus the YMCA. I first started swimming regularly at the Waterworks Sierra Madre Pool in 2013, and I lap swim there 2 to 3 times a week from 2013 all the way up until September of 2020 when the pool was given over to the YMCA, and that was over 7 years. At the time, I was dumbfounded as to why you would take the pool away from Waterworks. I love swimming at the Sierra Madre Pool. Waterworks had a friendly staff, the pool was clean and well maintained, the pool was warm, they were open all day, every day of the week, and we were swimming in beautiful Sierra Madre. Plus, there were all kinds of community and family events sponsored by Waterworks. They were clearly making an effort to span the wide range of pool-related interests in our community. After the mandatory 3-month shutdown at the beginning of the pandemic, which started in mid-March of 2020, we resumed swimming again at Waterworks Sierra Madre at the end of June, and we swam right through the summer up until you took the pool away from them in September 2020. I'd heard the reasoning for the change had to do with there not being enough opportunities for the community to swim at the pool. If that was the case, your replacement of Waterworks with the YMCA didn't make any sense. If you wanted to provide more opportunities to swim, why would you replace Waterworks with an organization that offers less days and less hours during the day to swim? The YMCA is open a half day on Saturdays, closed Sundays, and is closed for 3 hours midday Monday through Friday, a 3-hour gap during each day. Plus, they limit your lap swim time to 30 minutes, and the pool is cold. Well, you gave the contract over to the YMCA, which took several weeks to open once they took over. So then there was no swimming in Sierra Madre for a long time. I was absolutely furious over what had happened. Those of us that swam regularly couldn't wait for months, and I remember we were all scrambling around trying to find a place to swim. Fortunately, Waterworks found us a temporary place at Garish Swim and Tennis Club, and until they were able to transfer us over to their indoor pool in Pasadena. I was at the commission meeting last week about the pool, and at that time, the committee said that the YMCA shouldn't be judged on their ability to staff the pool over the last 2 years because of the pandemic. I don't agree with that. As I previously stated, except for the first 3 months of mandatory lockdown, those of us that stayed with Waterworks swam through the entire pandemic, including the last 2 years. There were no pool closures with Waterworks due to lack of personnel. It was business as usual. I loved the Sierra Madre pool, as did many other lap swimmers that I know. Now I currently swim at the Waterworks Pasadena
Wrap
pool.
it up, ma'am.
Oh, I'm just about finished. It's a great pool, but would I rather swim at the Sierra Madre pool? Absolutely. Many of us felt very disenfranchised when you took the pool from Waterworks. And for the reasons I've outlined, many of us have not returned to the Sierra Madre pool since the YMCA took over. You have a chance.
We are going to have to end.
Like this. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Please, everyone, try to keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Jill Klein. I swam at the Sierra Madre pool from 2007 to 2012 when it was a city-run pool, and I was one of many people who left the pool when Waterworks took over. Waterworks is a swim club for small children. They keep the pool uncomfortably warm at 90 degrees. The average temperature for lap swimming is 83 degrees, which is just about what the YMCA keeps it at. We all left for other pools. I wanted to say that this Y has been very receptive to the community, especially for us seniors. When I started, I said, are there going to be water aerobics? And they said, well, we don't think so. We don't think there's an audience for that. But there was an audience, and they now have 5 days a week of water aerobics, which is mostly seniors. And whereas Waterworks was charging $9 a class for the water aerobics, the Y works with Medicare supplement plans. I don't have to pay for my membership because my Medicare supplement plan pays for that. I also have friends who are a little younger who aren't on Medicare. They can't afford the Y. The Y said, we will work with them because we want to serve the community. Waterworks is great if you've got little kids who want to take swim lessons. But if you are an adult who wants to do lap swimming or do other things, it's been a disaster. I remember when you gave it to Waterworks without any notice to the swimmers, and we came here after the fact, and we were told it was a done deal and it was going to be for at least 5 years. And I know for a fact Waterworks has been trying to take over public pools all over the valley. They tried to do it in Duarte. I'm not sure where else they tried to do it. But please don't give them our YMCA pool. I'm so glad it's back in the control of an organization that serves the whole community, not just small children who are taking swim lessons. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, Nancy, and I apologize, I believe it's Bale, and followed by Teresa Martinez.
My name's Nancy Boyd.
Thank you.
And I have done Waterworks and I have done the Y, and there's no comparison. Waterworks is for little kids, and they have no problem staffing lifeguards because they have no lifeguards. If you go to their facility, it's all over the walls, no lifeguards. And the Y has worked so hard to give us more time, to give us more classes, and you know, they forget there was COVID, and they still worked hard and did what we needed. And I'd hate to ever see Waterworks come back again because they are not here for the seniors. And the seniors are here, and we love the classes. We love Anthony. We love the staff. They work with you. And I just hope you remember that. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, Teresa Martinez, followed by, I believe it's Judith Capron.
Hi, Teresa Martinez. I live on Montecito. I too swam with the city, with Waterworks, and now with the Y. Again, Waterworks is all about lessons. That's where they get most of the revenue, although they do get a lot of revenue from lap swimmers. I figured out that it would cost me $400 more a month to do lap swimming with Waterworks than it does with the Y. And that's quite a big difference. Another thing that I hadn't thought of until it kind of hit me in the head, literally, is I had a stroke when I was in the pool. And the Y was there. They had lifeguards. They called for the paramedics who took me to the hospital. There were many times with Waterworks when I was the only one in the pool. No one was on the deck. If that had been the case when I'd had my stroke, who knows? I may be floating in the pool. So I think that the Y, there are improvements they can make, and they are working on making those improvements. They do listen to us. They have changed things. They have added hours. They've added hours to Saturday. Yes, or we would like more hours. Yes, we would like more lifeguards available. I think that it wasn't lifeguards were not a problem before for the Y or for any pool, city pool, because there isn't the workforce now that there was before. And that is not just a Y problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Judith Capron. I have been at the Y now for about a year, a little bit longer than that. In terms of accessibility, you just can't compare it with anything else. We have lifeguards. They're working on getting more. The staff is so amenable. And I'm hoping and hoping and hoping that we see that this is a great thing for the community. The Y has served us well. The classes are excellent. They're crowded. Many people attend the classes in water aerobics and deep water aerobics. And I think it is a blessing for the community to continue to be served by the Y. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, the final speaker card is for Susan Newhausen.
Good evening, Mayor Goss, council members, city staff. I have a complaint. For your argument against Measure HR, we filed a writ because the argument was factually incorrect and false. In the judge's decision, he stated, quote, "The statement is not just imprecise, it is false. No matter whether a commercial entity or an individual, no single person could develop the property's 35 acres into 68 units. Neither SB 9 nor the city's SB 9 ordinance would permit it. Yet the statement's plain meaning is that a single developer would build up to 68 units on the property," unquote. The judge made that ruling on September 8th. That's almost 3 weeks ago. However, that false statement is still on the city website, and the corrected version is not to be found. I emailed Ms. Aguilar and Mr. Garagosian about this matter on Friday, and it still has not been fixed. It makes me wonder whether the argument that is on the ballot is the same false argument, is it? It's unacceptable that the city continues to have false, misleading information on the website. It suggests that the city is purposely providing false information to its residents. I would like to know when the false statement will be removed and when the ballot argument will be uploaded. A second point, when I sent in my public comment, I received an out of office from Ms. Iraméndez. The Meadows project is consequential to Sierra Madre residents as it affects the character of our city. It's important to the people of Sierra Madre that Ms. Iraméndez be put on record just in case she runs for office again. All 5 city council members need to be on record. We ask that you defer the second reading until all 5 members are present. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we received a final A speaker card from Alex Arietta.
Good evening. I want to speak briefly about water and indicate that it's still a serious concern and it continues to get worse. And for the project to be contemplated at this time, the Meadows project is unacceptable. Secondly, I want to reiterate that I think it's completely unacceptable and frankly reprehensible that not all 5 city council members are considering the project and in attendance to contemplate this project, which is the largest development in the history of Sierra Madre. It's just unacceptable that not all 5 council members are here to vote on this project. And it's frankly ridiculous that the rest of the council is going along with this and not simply delaying the project decision and contemplation. Thirdly, I think it's shameful that the false statement that was put out has not been rescinded, even though the city attorney has been informed about this. It simply has not been changed. And it's decided by court 2 weeks ago that that was a false statement put out by the city attorney, city council on the rebuttal statement to our Measure HR1. And it's simply deceitful to the city residents to have a false statement up there, unacceptable, and it needs to be addressed. And I'm wondering when it will be addressed. Finally, it is critical that the city council know that you, despite it being raised in the last meeting about there not being a mandate with the 1,300 signatures that were gathered for Measure HR1, that was only 15% of the population. We could have gone much further than that, much further. Many residents in this city are strongly opposed to this project. So yes, it is a mandate. And if the city council is continuing to go forward with deliberating the project and ultimately deciding on it, there will be other repercussions around it, around a referendum to overturn the city council decision. City residents are very concerned about that, and very concerned about the fact that the city council is not considering the concerns, legitimate concerns about fire risk, building the highest fire zone in the city, impact to water supply, impact to traffic, impact to wildlife. These are all significant concerns about the EIR that has not been contemplated by this city council, even though it has significant deficiencies in it. And I said this last time, but all of you are accountable for the EIR. It was not seriously contemplated by the Planning Commission either. But it would seem to be that at your level, at the city council level, before this project gets approved, EIR would be seriously debated and discussed after more than 2 hearings and meetings. Very, very disappointed with the city council at this point with how it's handling this project.
Thank you, Mr. Arrieta. We have another one, Madam City Clerk.
It appears that we do. Mr. Mayor, Robert Jerde.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I just have to. I would encourage people to vote no on Measure HR. It violates the rights of the Passionists. And there's a referendum coming out. I'd say vote no on the referendum. It's a small group of people who've made no effort to work with the city or the developer to resolve issues. Every concession has been met with shifting goalposts. This is what it means to be unreasonable. I mean, look at technically the words a developer. Who cares if it's one developer or 4 or a dozen developers? Nobody wants 68 units built up there, 68 mansions potentially, and the judge did rule in the case that 68 units could be built. Sorry, I'm trying to read my notes here. The EIR shows no significant impacts. What's to discuss in it? And I think the picture that you were given is the Ocean Colony development. It's 52 homes on 9 acres. The Meadows project is 42 homes on 17 acres. It includes a 3-acre park, 40 acres in conservancy, net zero water offsets, plenty of concessions for the city. You can't compare the 2 projects. Also, you shouldn't give special preference to Harvard-educated lawyers who should know meeting decorum. So, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Mayor, there are no other speaker cards submitted for items not on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Madam City Clerk. So we're going to move on now to presentations that we have scheduled. We have a treat for you tonight. Our Assemblyman Chris Holden is here for the 41st District, and he's going to provide us with some legislative updates. And coming on the heels of attending our library grant ceremony earlier this afternoon, which was a pleasure to have him with us then as well.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and certainly it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight to bring an update, but also let me just say how thrilled I was to join with you this afternoon to bring a check of support for your libraries. I want to give special consideration and thought and thank you to the Friends of the Library, the volunteers in this community who have really been second to none in their dedication to making sure that quality libraries exist in the city of Sierra Madre. And also to you, Council, for your leadership. Certainly working with us and putting this on our radar screen, it gave us an opportunity to really advocate for you. And it was a pleasure to be able to be successful. I will say, as I've said earlier, I was even shocked that we were able to get $10 million. But I will say that for no better cause than for preserving libraries in not only our cities, our state, but our nation. So I thank you for your leadership in that effort, and we look forward to partnering with you as time goes on and other needs arise. I also want to say that when I started this year, this has been a very productive legislative session, and after chairing the Assembly Committee on Utility and Energy for 5 years, the Speaker appointed me to chair the Appropriations Committee. As bills came before me, I operated with the mindset that my colleagues had done their due diligence, and as the final step before moving along these bills to the Assembly floor, it was the committee's job to evaluate the worth of each bill, the impact, and the fiscal challenge to the state. During my first year as chair, I facilitated over 2,500 meetings, and this is with individuals and with organizations on legislation, on policy, and on bills, and there were over 1,000 bills that we had to evaluate as a committee. We started 2022 by still trying to rehabilitate and heal from the ongoing challenges of COVID-19. The taxpayers and ratepayers have voiced their needs and concerns, and both the legislature and the administration have brought forth laws in an effort to protect and uphold their interests. I'm proud to say that this year we have made a massive multi-year commitment to the state's infrastructure, funding schools, higher education, broadband infrastructure, and a clean transportation system to assure Californians' success for generations to come. Earlier in June, the governor released the state's approved budget for 2022. After more than 2 years of living through this pandemic nightmare, it is clear that disadvantaged communities are disproportionately affected, whether directly through higher cases, hospitalizations, and deaths, or indirectly through lower education quality due to lack of resources. The budget makes unprecedented investments in state infrastructure, $47 billion, to enhance the state's transportation system, promote energy innovation and reliability, advance statewide housing goals, and support K-12 and higher education segments to make the state more resilient to climate change. The governor's approved budget provides over $17 billion in relief to millions of Californians to help offset rising costs and reflects an accelerated minimum wage increase effective January 1st of 2023. At the centerpiece of the budget is a refund of up to $1,050 that will benefit millions of Californians based on income level and size of household. The relief package also includes increased grants for the state's lowest income families and individuals and additional funding for food banks. I'm encouraged to see the governor has taken my request to ensure essential workers in the fast food sector have a seat at the table by signing my bill, AB 257, on Labor Day, making it the first in the nation to bring together all stakeholders to address workplace standards. In an effort to boost our local economies, an early education package enacted in February of 2022 took the following steps to support small businesses. First, it restored the use of the business tax credits and net operating losses 1 year earlier than planned to continue to invest in companies that fueled the recovery. Second, it exempted amounts received by businesses from the Federal Restaurant Revitalization Fund and Shuttered Venue Operations Grant programs from state income tax and allowing normal deductibility for the expenses related to the grants. Lastly, it provided an additional $150 million one-time for the California Small Business COVID-19 Relief Grant Program, bringing the total investment to approximately $4.2 billion, $2.7 billion general fund, $1.5 billion federal dollars. I applaud the governor for recognizing and meeting our communities where they are needed, and I look forward to working with him to ensure a just, equitable, and safe recovery. The budget also includes substantial investments to address homelessness and behavioral health challenges and includes funding to make neighborhoods safer. It also supports additional protection from the impacts of wildfire and drought. As we continue to experience the effects of climate change like catastrophic wildfires, among other disasters, the governor has committed $6.6 billion over multiple years for energy innovation and reliability projects, demonstrating his continued commitment and the legislature to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. I look forward to working with the governor and the administration and my colleagues in the legislature to save lives in our economy while committing to shared priorities like education, affordable housing, and our environment. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act is the largest long-term investment in our infrastructure and competitiveness in nearly a century. For decades, infrastructure in California has suffered from systemic lack of investment. The American Society of Civil Engineers gave California a C- grade on its infrastructure report card. The historic Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act will make life better for millions of California residents. The bipartisan infrastructure bill is exactly what our country needs right now to create jobs and fix our transportation and water systems. I'm optimistic that the billions that will come to California can indirectly help secure funding to extend the Gold Line to Claremont and Montclair. Extending the Gold Line remains a top priority for me and many of my colleagues in the San Gabriel Valley. The extension will connect two large counties by bringing much needed relief to one of the busiest commute corridors in the country. The sooner we can complete the Gold Line extension, the sooner we can clean our air, curb climate pollution, and relieve traffic congestion in Los Angeles and San Bernardino County. Since being elected to the Assembly in 2012, I've had the privilege to author and co-author over 100 bills that were signed into law. These legislative victories stem from conversations such as the ones that we've had here in Sierra Madre and continue to collaborate with members of the community. Through your input, our office was able to creatively take steps toward finding solutions that work on a myriad of issues. On social justice issues continuing to be a priority for me, this year Governor Newsom signed my bill, AB 1604, which establishes the Upward Mobility Act of 2022. This bill modifies state civil service examination and appointment practices to increase the diversity in applicants pool and employment lists, determine areas of compliance for non-merit related audits, and promote the successful achievement of upward mobility goals for underrepresented state employees. In the area of education, I have taken steps to remove some barriers to dual enrollment access by successfully enacting the College Career Access Pathway Act of 2016. This act created a paradigm shift where dual enrollment became accessible to all and not only the 5% of scholastically advanced students. For the past 5 years, I introduced legislation annually to ensure dual enrollment opportunities remain available to high school and community college students. This year, I'm happy to report that I have a bill pending before Governor Newsom to extend the program indefinitely, and I'm hopeful he will sign it. I also authored AB 2617, which the governor included in his budget on dual enrollment. It would allocate approximately $500 million for local educational agencies to strengthen and expand access to high school students to participate in dual enrollment programs and opportunities, providing youth with an accessible head start into their careers. For the past few years, I also introduced several measures to address clean air and water. One of these bills is AB 2446, Embodied Carbon Emissions Construction Materials, which requires the California Air Resources Board to develop a framework for measuring and reducing greenhouse gas emissions associated with new building construction. It also requires the California Air Resources Board to develop by July 1st, 2025, a framework for measuring and reducing the carbon intensity of new building construction. The passage of SB 100, Clean Energy Act of 2018, created the policy to meet all of the state's retail electricity supply with a mix of RPS eligible and zero carbon resources by December 31st, 2045, which equals 100% clean energy. With the potential for an unstable utility grid that may drive up costs for consumers, my priority will be to maintain reliability and affordability amongst our utility services for all Californians. Expanding the California Independent System Operator's footprint to neighboring states can increase our state's efficiency while reducing costs to ratepayers. I will keep you informed on how that effort proceeds as we move into the first quarter of 2023. And with that, I want to say thank you for giving me an opportunity, as you always have, to come before you and share with you some of the things that we've been able to accomplish within the state of California from the Assembly side, and look forward to continue to work with you going forward. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So thank you for that presentation, Assemblyman Holden. Questions? I know.
Assemblymember, can you tell us a little bit more about expanding CalISO to other states and about the energy infrastructure? It's one of the things that I'm particularly interested in, and you know, there's a concern right now. From the Clean Power Alliance's perspective, it's really hard to build new generation just because all the land that the prime land to build generation has pretty much been taken, and so those projects are moving further and further away, and it's hard to get the revenue congestion rights to be able to import power into California. And so it sounds like some of these things you're working on. I'd like to know more, and happy to follow up with staff afterwards. But thank you for the leadership on it, and it's something that we're going to need to have to get to that 100% RPS.
Without a doubt, and I think it's imperative that we continue to look at procuring power, clean energy power, where we can, and developing new opportunities like offshore wind. We're certainly working with the leadership down in the Salton Sea area for geothermal production, lithium direct mining, which would create really a game changer for California and for the world if we were able to look at development and technology advancements for battery storage that go beyond several hours to several days, if not weeks. Yeah. So the future is bright. California, because we have our own Regional Transportation Organization, or RTO, we're currently working with other states by taking day ahead, well actually it's when needed, additional resources we can look at through the energy imbalance market, which allows us to provide resources to other states. So there's already governance in place. Looking to expand on the grid to a day ahead would be the energy imbalance market plus the day ahead. And with that, we think it gives us really the opportunity and the opening to expand to a full regionalized grid. Makes us better exporters, so when we get to that end of the day when we may be curtailing power or curtailing solar power because we just don't have the use for it at that particular moment, we can actually export it to other states who could benefit, and vice versa. When the sun is shining in Wyoming and it's dark here, we can import solar and wind power from other areas. So the 14 regional states become a collaborative, which I think puts us in a stronger position to better address reliability so we don't find ourselves in the same situation that we did in 2020 when high heat events not just in California, but in other neighboring states, combined with not just wildfires, but catastrophic wildfires. Oregon border, beginning of last year, there was a wildfire that threatened transmission lines that then put pressure, additional pressure on the grid, and we can't continue to keep operating with flex alerts. It's necessary right now, but it's not how we're going to have to make sure our future is reliant and make sure the lights stay on and the rates are low. So I think it does provide an important footstep for us to pursue.
Mr. Mayor, thank you so much. I'm sorry I missed the presentation at the library this afternoon, but thank you for your efforts on that and your leadership. I mean, it's going to be game-changing for our community and been something that our community's talked about for decades, so that's just really going to make a huge impact. I was interested in what you had to say about the dual enrollment program that you have taken the lead on, and I know firsthand, my oldest is actually in the Duarte School District in a charter school, and they are very active with Citrus College, a partnership directly where many of the high school students actually have direct, dual enrollment with Citrus College and are taking college courses, which, as you know, is important these days because many colleges are no longer offering credit for, AP classes and taking the test. These are actual college credits on the transcript. My question for you is more local because obviously many of our residents send their high schoolers to Pasadena Unified School District high schools. Wondering, I haven't heard much from that district as to their efforts in this regard, and I know they've been doing a lot in the way of their various programs and campus-specific subject area focuses, but I haven't heard much from them on dual enrollment. Have you had any conversations with PUSD, or is that something that we could help facilitate with our representative?
Indeed, and I know that Pasadena City College has been very much a front leader in this effort because it is the combination of the school district and the community colleges working collaboratively, providing instructional support, resources. Sometimes the resources are on the college campus, sometimes they're actually provided on the high school campus. And the beauty of the program is it added additional credits so that a ninth grader, if so motivated, could start taking college courses while as a ninth grader along with their regular course work as a high schooler. By the time they graduate with their degree as a 12th grader, they could also possess their associate's degree, which means they enter college as a junior, first year junior. As a parent, I wish my kids were on that track. It saves a lot in the cost of education, certainly, but it also gives young people a head start to their career. And then there are also those who, college may not be the end game for them. And so back when I was in school, they had vocational educational courses. Well, this can sort of fit in so that there's a trade, a skill set that can be developed along the way as well. The $500 million, or the $400 million thereabouts that the governor has in the budget that we put in there was really designed to create enhanced outreach so that parents know more about the dual enrollment programs and that they understand at what stage they can engage their young person to get involved. It also is a very important component for those who are in need of remedial education so that it gives them additional support while in high school so that they're not graduating high school, going to college, and then having to take remedial English or math because they were just a little short before they can start down their college path. So it really does create a lot of benefits. It's a dual track, and I think it really is a game changer. And I know that in different parts of the state, it's being used differently. That's why we didn't come up with a one-size-fits-all. It's a partnership between local community colleges and school districts so that they can meet the needs of their young people based on the resources available. In the Central Valley, there are companies out there that wanted to take advantage of it so that they can partner with the community colleges and start to train young people while in high school how to get into the agricultural businesses that are so prevalent in the Central Valley. So I think it does create really a great opportunity for strengthening the workforce down the line, but also creating greater opportunity for young people to get into and through college in a reasonable period of time.
Yeah, so I'd just like to add on that. My son is a 9th grader at Pasadena High School, and one of his teammates in the cross-country team is enrolled in dual enrollment. He's been touting it. He's a high achiever, but I like what you said about the vocational opportunities as well, because it's not just advanced placement versus dual enrollment, or using both of those programs, because a lot of times advanced placement classes are not for every student. Giving students that aren't in the AP track opportunities at the community college level, because that's where we find those vocational trainings, not the university level. Letting them get in touch with that early on in their high school career, I think, is very innovative, and it should be applauded. And I like that this money is coming towards kind of the education of the parents to know that these opportunities are available, because oftentimes we don't know these things. So it's very helpful. Also, I just want to applaud you on all of this clean air stuff that you're bringing forward. You're not only saying we need to do these things, because we do need to, but you're coming up with solutions, creative solutions. Let's extend our mass transit to then have less cars on the road to lessen our carbon footprint. You're doing things up and down with the grid. Let's not just say we need to have more electric cars, et cetera. At the same time, we need to strengthen our grid so the residents in our communities can then have their electricity when they need it. So I just want to applaud you for those things, and obviously for what you did for this community. We are forever grateful for listening to us and taking it up with the Appropriations Committee to support that. So thank you.
That's why you sent me to Sacramento.
I have just one question and one comment. My question is, when do you sleep?
I had Well, it's funny. That's when you start to recognize that you are getting a little older, and I'll just speak for myself. I don't sleep long as I used to. I go to bed a little later than I'd like to. But I think, it's just, I don't know.
The thousands of bills, all these policy areas, all of them deep and important, and it's amazing that you're able to address so many of them. It's kind of weird. Kelly and Ed both brought up dual enrollment. That's what I brought up. All those things you talked about, I wanted to talk about it just a minute, because I teach at a community college, and I am seeing tons of kids coming in at 10th, 11th grade from underrepresented groups, getting a head start, getting into their college years with 20, 30, 40, 50 units already. It's saving them money, it's saving them time, it's giving them a boost. It's a fantastic plan, and I'm seeing it working with my own eyes, and I just want to thank you for your part in those programs.
I'll tell you this too. Don't tell the governor, but we're going to try to figure out how to bring some form of redevelopment 2.0. I think for cities that have lost that opportunity to use tax increment dollars to target appropriate development, to help bring in affordable housing and other needs that were usually met.
It's a big need.
Under redevelopment dollars. So, try to figure that out.
And one last thank you for that check. Your aide brought the check down, I think. Could we just hold that up? We all took pictures. We all took pictures earlier today, but thank you so much, Assemblyman Holden. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we have another presentation coming up from the California Department of Insurance on wildlife safety, or wildfire safety, excuse me. Wait a minute, that's our fire chief.
We're still on track, sir. Mayor Pro Tem and Council. It's my pleasure to actually be able to have the opportunity to introduce our next presenter. Is Armene Sarksian. She's the outreach analyst for the California Department of Insurance's Community Relations and Outreach branch. And earlier this year, the Department of Insurance and State Emergency Response and Preparedness agencies announced the Safer from Wildfires interagency partnership designed to protect life, homes, businesses by reducing wildfire risks. The Safer from Wildfires Framework takes a community-wide approach to reducing wildfire risk in communities and making insurance available and affordable to Californians. RMNA is here to present to the community these new statewide developments and how they will be able to assist residents in residing in the very high fire severity zone. And the fire department is pleased to collaborate with the California Department of Insurance in conjunction with our Sierra Madre Achieves Resiliency Together program, or the acronym SMART, to promote these state initiatives designed to improve our community safety, preparedness, and resiliency. So I'm glad that there's some state agencies out there that are looking and thinking the same as we are, right? And together, as our program says, resiliency together. It's going to take that village to do it. We're going to extend that village. I'm glad to see we got the help from the state. So, like I said, my pleasure to introduce RMNA to present this project or the presentation for you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Thank you so much, Chief Bartlett, for that introduction. I'm pleased to join you tonight to share with you what we have done as a department to save lives and make insurance affordable and available. So, just to give you a brief introduction of who we are as a department, because we realize that the Department of Insurance is not really at the top of the list. Whenever you talk to individuals out in the community, 99% of the time we hear, we've never heard of you as a department. Where we do have a major role. We protect consumers when it comes to unreasonable or discriminatory policy pricing. We maintain insurance solvency by ensuring that insurance companies actually have enough funds to pay for claims when time comes for that. We set the standards for licensing agents and brokers. We also regularly perform market conduct reviews of insurance companies to make sure that they are in compliance. We resolve consumer complaints. We also investigate and prosecute insurance fraud. One thing that we cannot do as a department is we cannot mandate that an insurance company sell insurance to a particular community or a person. So since 2019, the Department of Insurance has prioritized meeting with consumers throughout the state of California, specifically in those high fire areas, but also in areas where there could be a potential wildfire in the future. So we've met with thousands of individuals in 40 counties, and what the message was increasingly coming out from that was insurance is unavailable in my area, or it's increasingly unaffordable. So we were able to then work with the state legislature to make insurance more affordable. We were able to remove some barriers to allow wildfire survivors to receive the insurance benefits that they paid into. So we've been able to extend the living expenses, extend some of the policy premiums that insurance companies pay. Also, we were able to increase the coverage to meet upgraded building costs as well. Another crucial bill that became law back in 2019 was allowing a one-year moratorium from non-renewals for those individuals who reside in governor-declared wildfire emergencies. So immediately following a governor wildfire emergency, insurance companies cannot non-renew for 1 year. We were able to increase also the non-renewal notice that insurance companies give to consumers from 45 days to 75 days to allow more time for policyholders to find an alternative policy. Additionally, the FAIR plan is something that your constituents may be dealing with. The FAIR plan is an insurer of last resort. It is not a state agency, nor is it funded by public funds. It is essentially a pool of insurance companies that provide insurance in the state of California who share the risk. The FAIR plan, about 2.5% of Californians are on the FAIR plan. And so when Insurance Commissioner Lara took office, the coverage limits had not increased in decades, while the consumer price index had doubled over time. So we were able to increase the coverage limits. Additionally, this year, working with the state legislature, we were able to mandate that the FAIR plan cover agricultural businesses, which it wasn't previously, like also wineries. And lastly, this year, we mandated that the FAIR plan provide comprehensive coverage along with the limited policy that is currently providing. The Fair Plan sued the state of California, so we're currently locked in litigation, but we will not stop until this policy is actually a fair policy for everyone. So that brings me to the Safer from Wildfires Framework. As the chief mentioned, this is a partnership with other state agencies, the governor's agencies of emergency readiness and response agencies. And this is a first of its kind partnership to give individuals throughout the state actions, clear actions on what they can do to harden their homes, save their lives, and in effect, have their insurance premiums reduced. So how this works is, and I should mention that I know it might be a little difficult to read the slides. This framework is available on our website, insurance.ca.gov. And the framework, actually, all the action steps align with the state fire marshal's regulations, so this is nothing new. And I'm pretty sure that Sierra Madre Fire Department also would recommend this to your residents. So essentially, it starts with protecting your individual structure, so making sure that your vents, your walls, your windows, your roof are all fire safe. And so it gives you a list of what you can do. Secondly, it is protecting your immediate surroundings, so making sure that your deck, your outer buildings are all fire safe, so it's clearing dead vegetation. And lastly, it involves the community as a whole. So it includes programs such as Firewise, where neighbors come together to discuss actionable steps on what they can do. To also have some sort of a wildfire plan. So it is very crucial to have this step, because nothing's worse if, let's say, you have done the work to harden your home, but your next door neighbor's home is a fire hazard. So that does affect your pricing as well. So the Safer from Wildfires framework comes along with regulations that the Department of Insurance has actually submitted to the Office of the Administrative Law. The regulations, once they go into effect, and our hope is by January of next year, they will require insurance companies to factor in the consumers and businesses' wildfire safety actions into the pricing. So if you've done the work to harden your home, you should see discounts. It could range anywhere from 5% to 20%. It really depends on what your premiums are, but you should be able to see some discounts if you harden your home. Additionally, now consumers, starting next year, will receive their wildfire risk score. All insurance companies already give you wildfire risk score, but you never really see that score. So now, because of these regulations, you should receive something in writing from your insurance company starting next year that will say what your wildfire risk score is, as well as why, the reasons behind that risk score. Lastly, this will give you a right to appeal. So if you do not agree with the risk score determination, you can appeal the decision if you've especially done the work to harden your home. We did hold a public hearing April 13th, so we collected a lot of public comment, and so this now is the culmination where on September 1st we submitted the regulations to the Office of the Administrative Law. They have about 30 days to get back to us, and once they do, we'll share the regulations with the insurance industry and be able to finally get this implemented in next year. I'll also give you a map of the very high fire hazard severity zones in Sierra Madre. I know that there are no indications in terms of the streets, but essentially, as you can see, this is from the CAL FIRE website. As you can see, exactly half of the city is in the very high fire hazard severity zone. And when I was having a conversation with the fire chief, he mentioned that very soon when this map is redone, potentially the entire city of Sierra Madre might be included in the very high fire area. Lastly, what we're doing as a department is working because we know the last data that we have in terms of non-renewals is from 2020, and we know that non-renewals fell by 10%. Additionally, currently, 19 insurance companies, which comprise 40% of the insurance market, homeowners insurance and business insurance market, already provide discounts for hardening efforts, home hardening efforts. So once these regulations go into effect, 100% of the insurance market will give discounts. And with that, I'll just leave you with our phone number. This is our hotline number, 1-800-927-4357. This number is actually answered Monday through Friday 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. by a live expert. And they're an expert in all kinds of insurance-related questions, but specifically wildfires as well. So if you have a question, a concern, a complaint, if you suspect fraud and you want to file a claim, this is the number for you to call. But you could also take action on our website, insurance.ca.gov. And as I mentioned, the framework and all kinds of fire-related information is also on our website on that page. Thank you so much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that very thorough presentation. Do we have any questions? Yes.
I just have one question about the wildfire risk score. Is that broad-based in that, it's based on sort of where your house is located, sort of generally like, the red zone that you showed us on the map of Sierra Madre? Or is it tailored to a particular house where they've actually then done the assessment about your hardening efforts or lack thereof?
So my understanding is, even though I haven't seen what that wildfire risk score will look like, but each individual insurance company will be tasked with providing you that wildfire risk score in whatever format that will meet the guidelines that we put forth. So they will base it on where you reside, of course, in terms of the slope, the vegetation around it, and what you've done to your house as well. So it may look a little different for each individual insurance company, but overall there will be regulations that they will have to follow that the Department of Insurance has put forth.
So meaning that if there was two neighbors in the high risk fire severity zone in Sierra Madre, one had taken efforts and one had not, they would get different scores, is your understanding?
Definitely, and that is why we're stressing that we should all work together as a community, because your neighbor's actions or inactions will affect your wildfire risk score. So that last piece, community-wide effort, is crucial.
Thank you.
Just off that question, will these scores, it sounds like not, but will they be standardized, kind of like a FICO score or something? Would it be a standardized score that goes across different insurance companies, and will individuals know how much they can lower their impact score in order to get a rate reduction?
My understanding is there's already that score, just like a FICO score, there is that score limit. I think 30 is the top, if I'm not mistaken. So they already use that scale, but now that will be public to you as a policyholder. You will now see it, and it will say why you received that score. And of course, you'll be able to lower it. You'll have the right to appeal the score should you have done the work.
Thank you.
I just want to start by thanking you for, and Commissioner Laura for the leadership in this area, particularly in trying to make sure that everybody can have insurance. As we have seen over the past 3 or 4 years, the incidence of wildfire in the state is becoming bigger and more devastating. And so it is, I've heard stories of people, even here in Sierra Madre, that have had a hard time getting insurance. I'm glad that there is a insurer of last resort, and that you're pushing for making it easier for people to not only get insurance, but to be able to decrease their insurance rate if they do some of these things that my colleagues have talked about on trying to reduce their fire risk. So I just please convey our thanks for continuing to help us, those of us that are here in the WUI, that have the high impact and could have, that are at higher risk to these things. So thank you.
Thank you so much for those comments. If I may add, there is, if you mentioned that some people have had issues finding insurance, there is a top 10 tips for finding insurance on our website. Additionally, there is a tool for you. It's called the Home Insurance Finder on our website. So if you're having trouble, please go on our website, Home Insurance Finder. You'll be able to plug in your zip code. And based on your zip code, you'll also be able, there is a place for you to specifically mention fire insurance. So that will actually bring you a list of all agents, brokers, companies that write insurance specifically in those high fire areas.
I particularly appreciate that, because I know that I had to shop around for mine when I was looking for my insurance because of the risk pools that are here. So thank you.
One quick question. A lot of good stuff there, and it's already been commented on. What are you guys doing besides your presentations at city council meetings to publicize these discounts that are now being made available for hardening? Because that's the first I've heard of it, and it seems like there's a lot of a lot of people would like to know about it, right here in our city, for instance.
Absolutely. Well, meeting with your fire chief, of course, and sharing the information with him. And we have been going all over the state, making these presentations. I understand that many people don't follow the Department of Insurance because we did publicize this, but this is the reason why we're here. And we periodically do town halls as well. So if the city of Sierra Madre is interested in partnering on a town hall to bring this information to your residents, then please use me as a resource. Would love to partner with you.
I would think partnering with some of the other agencies of the state government too are involved in these wildfires, you know, because you all have a mutual interest in this information getting out.
Absolutely, yes.
Are you on Instagram?
I believe we are, and Twitter and Facebook, yes.
Yeah, if you could send us your, I mean, seriously, that's where a lot of people get their information these days, so even
Great.
things as mundane as insurance.
I'll make sure to share that with the city.
If I could answer to your question, your point, we'll make sure that we include their contacts, Twitters, all their handles, everything else, as much as we can on our publications and our notifications as well. Because it is a good collaboration. I'm glad to see that our residents will have opportunity to you know, find insurance and more collaboration on how we can all be resilient together, really. And it will take that community effort. So
And save
make
money.
Sure you are a part as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, lower insurance rates are always an incentive for hardening, right? So I think it's smart.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
presentation.
you so much for your time.
Want to take a break? It's an hour and a half. You know what? I've been asked, I think we will take a break. So we're going to have another presentation, which could take a little bit of time. How about 6 minutes? Come back at 7:05. We'll recess until then.
presentations or?
Yes.
Okay.
After their presentation is over, public comment. All these people here, I'd like to give them a chance to respond.
To all the three? That
Yeah,
makes
so they
sense.
get some education.
I know, my fault.
Okay, we're back. So we have one more presentation tonight before we move on to our consent calendar. And that is from the YMCA, their annual report update. And I want to break from typical protocol tonight. I can see that a lot of folks are here who are interested in what the Y does at the pool. So I'm going to allow, after the presentation is concluded, I am going to allow for additional public comment on this issue, this agenda item. And I will ask you, if you're interested in doing that, that you would fill out a yellow participation card. If you've already participated, you want to come up again, that's fine, but if we've already heard you once, you know, that's probably not going to be redundant, but that's okay if you want to do it. Anyway, can we get the representatives from the Y to come up? And
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Ruben Corona. I'm the Senior Vice President of Operations for the Ymca of Los Angeles. And this is Anthony Cruz, the Interim Executive Director of the Sierra Madre YMCA. And first of all, we want to thank you on behalf of the Ymca of Los Angeles to give us this opportunity to bring you up to speed on some of the progress of the work of the YMCA at the facility and the programs and activities that we provide for children, families, adults, seniors, and just anybody in general of the community. So Anthony is going to run us through a PowerPoint presentation that shows every program and activity that we had in the last few months.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. My name is Anthony Cruz. Like Ruben said, I'm the Interim Executive Director at the Sierra Madre Pasadena YMCA. I've been fortunate enough to be with the Y for 12 years, and I've been in this assignment at the Sierra Madre YMCA since the middle of July of this year. So just compiling some stuff of all the work that we've done in the community this past year. So what is the Y? Hopefully people have had some type of Y experience. We think the Y is the gym and swim. My first forte was in the Y was just as a part-time membership staff, but we're an all-inclusive serving organization from cradles all the way to our older active adults. So the YMCA, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We're guided by a volunteer board of managers. So those are our board members, and we report to them monthly with program updates, financial updates, and facility issues. The YMCA is mission-driven. The Y puts principles into practice through programs that build healthy spirit, mind, body for all. Our cause is to strengthen the foundations of community, which similarly aligns with the mission of the Sierra Madre Community Services Department, is to provide safe facilities, quality services, programs that are affordable, open, and friendly to enrich the overall quality of life for all visitors and residents. So we all know the past couple of years have been like a blur. We've kind of navigated this COVID bubble. Hopefully we're coming out of it. But the YMCA of the Metropolitan Los Angeles is a far-reaching organization. We go as south as Torrance, and as north as the Antelope Valley, and as east as Santa Anita. So during that pandemic, when our gyms were shuttered, we pivoted and we turned to social services work. So we were able to provide over 75,000 showers provided through our facilities to our people that just needed access to showers while maybe their gym was closed. We also provided 2 million plus meals and 4 million pounds of food distributed throughout our YMCAs. A lot of our Ys hosted blood drives, 20,000 lives potentially saved, with 65,000 units of blood donated. Just this past year, we partnered with the Huntington Hospital to do a blood drive out of the Sierra Madre YMCA, and I'm proud to report that the residents of the community donated 18 units of blood, which would help to save 45 lives. So that's something that the community should be really proud of. All right, there's our nice aquatic center. So just kind of some updates of our operations, the things that we've been doing and challenges that we have been facing. So some of our current challenges that we still face are staffing. Just across the board, staffing's been a hard challenge, but it's been something that we've been embracing with our regional model. We've been all hands on deck, and our regionals have been working with other regions, like we're the Eastern region, but working with the Valley regions, the South Bay regions to make sure that we're getting guards. Also, a chance to network and see strategies on how to acquire and retain staff too as well. During the time to address some of these issues, we've gone to local PCC, Cerritos colleges to just put up flyers, talk to their job counselors to say, hey, the Y is an open door, and if you have students that are looking to get a part-time job, if they're a qualified candidate, we would put them through the process of being a lifeguard, because that's something that's, we're invested into, is training our staff. Some of the immediate challenges is in our youth activity center. Our elevator is still not operational, and I know that's something that our past exec was working with the city to do, is try to address that and see how we can get the elevator working, because the youth activity center is not ADA accessible, but there's a lot of programming potential that we could be offering on the second floor. We could be doing our child activity center, so if a family comes in and they have multiple kids and they're doing a swim lesson, they can check their kid into the child activity center and not have to worry about the other siblings, but then focus on the sibling that's participating in the swim lesson. So, if you're a parent and you have multiple kids, it's hard to keep track of one, let alone 2 or 3. So that's some potential that we can have there. And then just opening it up to a teen center, so making sure that kids have a space where they can come, commune, and congregate with one another. Our current programs, our operating hours, so the beginning of January this year, we are currently open 44 hours a week. We had, yes, a middle day break in between, but when I came on, I brought some staff from my past assignment over at the South Pasadena Y to make sure that we were properly staffed, and we expanded our hours. So currently right now, our YMCA, we're open 6 a.m. to 11. We close, and then we're open again from 2 to 7. On Saturdays, we're open 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., and currently Sunday we're closed. In our pool, we've continued to expand our lap swim offering. Like you've heard from previous speakers, our water fitness classes, we started with 3, but now we've expanded to 5, so we offer it Monday through Friday. Offered more recreational swim times too, not only in the big pool, but we're utilizing the small pool and still facilitating swim lessons year round. So we're taking the bull by the horns and listening to member feedback, and once we can get those pieces into place, we take action to better serve the community. Different partnerships that we've done is just this past week, our YMCA is doing the play program out of the Sierra Madre Elementary School. So that was a partnership that our sports director worked out with the school administration, and that's basically us facilitating a PE program for the kids. So, when the kids weren't in school and everything was through Zoom, they kind of lost some of that motor skill development, some of that social interaction peer-to-peer, and that's a space where we can get those kids and get them to figure out, this is how your body moves, this is how coordination works, but also teach them how to be safe and respectable citizens to one another in their classes and others. Group exercise and personal training is still stuff that we still offer to our members too as well, and just looking to increase our offerings through those departments. And of course, our summer day camp program, which was a huge success this past year. So we are here for the community. That's what the Y does, is we create communities through all our programs that we offer. Just some of these pictures that you see listed are the pictures on your left. Is we did an Easter egg hunt for our members of the Y, but it was also open to community members too as well. So you didn't necessarily have to have a Y membership to participate. We just asked that you register and fill out our waiver, and you'd come in and participate. So we're looking to still continue to offer different community events throughout the year, and also hold on to those long-standing traditions that was held in the pool prior to the pandemic. And then the picture on your right is the Sierra Madre Library confetti blow-up ball. So kind of coming into my assignment here at the Sierra Madre YMCA, this was my first forte with working with the folks at the library to make sure that we, what would be the right word? Rewarded the summer readers program. So you had about 100, I think, right? So 100 kids that came in, parents, you know, making sure that they signed the waiver. They were very willing to sign the waiver to get their kids to swim, but that just shows that we're here in good faith to work with the community and outside organizations. So some of the summer programs, if you don't know this, the YMCA gives free memberships to teens for the months of June and July. We call that program Get Summer. So we had 41 Sierra Madre teens that took advantage of a free Get Summer membership. So that let them pretty much have free reign of the Y. They were a member just like anyone else, so they could use the pool for lap swimming, open swim. If they wanted to take a water exercise class, they could do that too as well. They also could work out in the facility and work on their fitness with the cardio equipment, strength training equipment, but then there is also experiences that they got to have. So the picture that you see here on the left is from our Get Summer End of Summer Barbecue Bash. I know it's a mouthful, but it was just a time where we had the teens come up to the upstairs teen center. We had foosball, pool going, we ordered pizza for them, they did karaoke, and it was just, they got to disconnect, but the best part was that they were engaging with one another and not engaging with their mobile devices, which we know is a big. And then the two pictures you see on your right are our summer day camp. So we did 6 weeks of summer day camp this year, and then we had over 513 kids participate in our 6 weeks of summer day camp. So it was a huge success. We had vendors that came in from like fossils to reptile shows. We had the LA Kings come in, and it was a great way to enrich their lives and get kids back outdoors again. So upcoming programs. So expanding our hours, that is our priority, making sure that we are staying properly staffed, and then expanding our hours as we get those feedbacks from the members. Adding recreational swim hours and water aerobics classes. Something new that the YMCA is doing is that you can enroll your child into any of our sports leagues for free with your family membership. So your kid can play basketball or in our flag football league at no extra cost. You just have to have an active YMCA membership for them to do that. Back this year is Youth in Government and Model United Nations. So if you're not too familiar with Youth in Government, it is our civic engagement program for high school aged kids where they reenact a mock California government. So we have teens that are writing bills that they're gonna debate on the assembly floors. We have a judicial program, so there's people that aspire to be lawyers, they can have experience arguing a case. But then there's different arms of that too, because not everyone wants to do that. There's a lobbyist program, so if there's teens that are good into talking to other teens into doing something, maybe they're gonna be a great lobbyist. So we're excited that that program's back in, they're actually going to 2 conferences this year, so it's not a hybrid where it's all virtual. They'll be going to Camp Roberts in November and taking over the state capitol at the end of February. So it's a really good program. And then upcoming in 2023, I know that's hard to say because where does time go? We're going back to sleepaway camp. So taking kids up to Camp Whittle, our camp up in Big Bear, and getting them the experience of not being in the city, not having their PlayStation 5 or Nintendo, whatever, and getting them disconnected and getting them to engage with the great outdoors. And also, we've established the Sierra Madre YMCA as an American Red Cross shelter site. So that's both the Youth Activity Center site and the pool site. We had some representatives from the American Red Cross come out to the Y, and they pretty much took an inventory of everything we had, like about how many shower stalls we have, how many toilets, if they're ADA, what kind of appliances. So if, God forbid, there's ever a need and there's an emergency where people need to evacuate the homes, we've established that partnership where we're on a list and they can see if the Y suits those needs of what they need. So it went from as far as like housing pets or where we can back a truck in. So God forbid that would ever happen, but if it does, the Y is ready to take action on that. And then in my short time, just the continued partnership with the city of Sierra Madre to host community-specific events, but also to build relationships with outside organizations. So that's all I have. I will open it up to questions to the council and mayor first before we do the audience?
Yeah, I definitely want my colleagues to ask questions if they have them, and then when that's completed, this is not an action item, so we won't be taking action. We will not be deliberating, but we'll ask you questions, and we'll give the audience an additional opportunity to comment when you're done. Who would like to ask a question? Councilmember Krebs?
Thank you for your presentation. Obviously, a lot of what we've heard from the community, both tonight and in private correspondence with the council, has been specific to the pool. I understand that the presentation that you gave, and I think some of the discussion at the Community Services Commission meeting last week was also about the operation of the broader facility, not necessarily just the pool. And obviously, as evidenced by this tonight, you seem to be viewing them as an integrated unit. I guess my question is, if you were to, how much of your programming would be impacted if the arrangement with the Y were to be with respect to the facility, not including the pool? Because it does seem somewhat integrated.
For the most part, we have 26 operations across the LA County, and all of those facilities have a pool. We have the YMCA nationally is the #1 swimming instructor across the United States, and we are known for teaching kids how to swim every summer. I mean, every facility provides that kind of water safety.
A little closer to the mic, just a little.
Water safety and swimming instructors. So the organization is very committed to have that kind of operation. I know the pool wasn't part of the operation of the Sierra Madre before, and we were happy to have the opportunity to have this facility. I know we went through a lot of challenges during COVID, not an excuse. I think definitely the opportunity that was given to us, we value it. Unfortunately, the lifeguard shortage and swimming instructor wasn't just for the Y, it was across the nation. And our CEO has committed, and pretty much both of us and the rest of the team, the staff team, to make sure that from here on, the operation of the pool is effective. So that's it.
Regarding hours, I know you have a commitment to expand hours. From what I recollect, when I was younger, the Y was always closed on Sundays. Is this Y closed on Sundays because of staffing issues, or is that something that the YMCA doesn't do?
I think the staffing issues are not as big as it was during the pandemic. I think we're overcoming that. I think the operations across the 26 branches depends on what's the traffic or what's the needs of the community. I think here at Sierra Madre, we probably will continue to open. If the need is there for Sundays, we will open as well.
Thank you.
I'll just follow up. I did hear tonight, and from at least 2 people, that staffing issues have been a problem with the pool, and that they have not been able have had access when they thought they were going to have access because of that. And I've also heard that in other correspondence. So how would you respond to that?
Yeah, again, not an excuse. We went through a lot of transition. The previous executive director moved on, and that was just a gap that was really difficult to close right away until we brought Anthony into this operation. He's very hands-on on operating a facility, well experienced. He has over 15 years of experience with the YMCA. The other part is that we have partnered with other entities. This entity is called Breakwaters, and this entity, what it does, they dedicate to train lifeguards and swimming instructors. So the partnership has been very helpful to us, because what they do, they need facilities to train people that are interested on taking those courses. So as soon as they graduate and they are certified, they refer those individuals to the Y. So that's one part. The staffing challenges in other areas, I think we cover that, and we feel very comfortable at this point.
So would you say it's fair to say that you, looking at your pipeline of people who are scheduled to work there, that you have all the time slots covered reasonably from here on out, or do you see any bare spots that need to be dealt with?
Yes, before Anthony coming into the picture, we experienced that. The management staff that was at the time running the operation, pool and facility, wasn't as experienced, and we are dedicating him to be hands-on on this, and whatever resources he needs to, we will be there to help with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and so yeah, my leadership style is just it's all hands on deck, and so in the time I've been there, if there's been a shortage of a lifeguard calling out, it's our regional aquatics director filling in. It's, you know, no one's above any role. I'm covering the membership desk on certain hours, just so we can keep the facility open and kids can come in for their swim lessons, but it's just all hands on deck and it's a team effort. So that's the type of style I bring on, and you know, we're not going to close something, we're going to find a solution and exhaust everything before we make that choice.
And how long have you been running it?
So I've stepped into this role here. I would say July 15th would be like my official date. So
I did receive, following up again, I did receive some complaints from people that during the last heat spell we went under, the pool wasn't available for a lot of time. Is that true? If it is, why?
During the last heat spell.
The one where we had several days of 100-degree plus.
Yeah, for sure. So that was Labor Day weekend. The pool was open, and the whole hours at the Y was open. We didn't close because of the heat wave. I mean, we do have an outdoor pool, and you know, we were doing everything we could as a management staff to make sure our guards didn't feel too many effects of that heat. So we gave them cooling towels. We froze water bottles and said, hey, put these in like your points of like, sorry, but like your armpits between your legs to keep your core temperature down, making sure that we staffed up on guards to rotate them out. I know that there's a particular Facebook post that floated around, but that was because we were closed for Labor Day, which was a holiday, and we informed our members of that closure, as well as some of the city folks that I work with, that we would be closed that day in observance of that holiday.
Thank you. Councilmember Parkhurst.
Follow up slightly. So you said that you didn't have a CEO for a bit, and that was part of the challenges with the staffing. And then I believe that Anthony, you introduced yourself as the interim director. Can you tell us is the plan to find an interim director? What is the plan on that, so that so we can continue to have staffing there to maintain the level of service that you've scaled up to so recently?
As I mentioned before, our CEO is committed 100% to make this operation successful. We, as I just finished before coming to this meeting, a conference call with, we have been in a search for an executive director for the Sierra Madre facility. So we're planning to have interviews on Wednesday and Thursday of this week, and then with the involvement of the board from the YMCA as well. So once we finalize who is going to be the executive director, that person will be permanent at that facility.
Seems like you got a pretty good one with Anthony right now.
Well,
it applies.
Yeah, and kind of expanding on that, for us, it's important to have continuity there. Last year there was a presentation by the director to us, and I expressed my concern that for many people that grew up here in Sierra Madre, their first job was working at the pool. That's historically what was going on, and I expressed that concern to the director, and I was told that yes, we're going to focus on that. We'll get them trained up, get them lifeguard certifications, and I feel like that didn't happen, and maybe it's because of the lack of continuity. So that's another thing that's important to this community, because we are a small community that embraces our youth. And we like to have opportunities for our youth to have jobs in town, at the pool, or like we do at Little League. They work at the diner, and girls softball, they work there. So opportunities for the younger people to have that first job. I think the community center and the pool is a good place for that. So what are your plans going forward as far as outreach? You have plans for outreach for hiring our local youth, et cetera?
We are trying to, because once again, it's 26 operations that we have in LA, and this challenge has been present in those 26 facilities. So the staff has been very creative on how do we reach out to nurture, as you presented to us, the future lifeguards or the future employees of the YMCA. So the creativity has been to the point where we are tapping into local swim teams or local high schools that already have those students that will be potential lifeguards or swim instructors for the Y. So we're going to develop a partnership, a direct partnership with those schools, so they see the Y as an opportunity that, yes, they can go and work for the city, the county, or the ocean, or there's other opportunities, but the Y could be here locally, and they could be part of that.
Thank you.
And kind of just something that happened in real time is kind of speaking to youth and getting them jobs, is just having conversations with our members. Like, I'm really forward facing, I'll be down there on the floor, but being really transparent and saying, yeah, if you know anyone that's a lifeguard, we'd love to put them through a swim test and we'd pay for them to be certified. And through that conversation, we've had 2 applicants that are under 18 that actually went to the Y when it was just the program center through like the after school care that we're trying to onboard and get interviewed. So it's just having conversations and those one-on-one interactions with people that are coming in through our doors.
But you wouldn't be adverse to maybe advertising there at the facility for local talent?
Oh, we're doing everything possible.
So you're doing that now?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Social media, through our Facebooks, we send out member e-blast every month. So, and that's always a point on there, is that we're hiring. I know the people from the city have also posted that through on their website too as well. So we're trying to get our tentacles out everywhere.
We exhausted all our questions?
Yeah, I think I might have a couple more, but I know that a lot of the residents are concerned about the pool. I'm kind of looking at, we're doing a good job asking those types of questions, but really the whole programming, I'm interested in a few things, such as that Get Summer free membership in June and July. Is that needs-based, or does every teen get an opportunity to do that?
Yeah, no, it's not needs-based at all. It's just every teen between the ages of 12, and it was like this past summer was 18.75 because we realized some seniors have that age gap. So, I mean, you just come in. If you're under 18, you have to have your parent come in and sign like the membership packet and waiver because you're underage, but it's open to anyone that wants to come in. And the good part about that is if the teens sign up at one YMCA in the LA Association, they can use any other of the branches within our LA Association. So say they have friends over downtown, they can go to the Ketchum YMCA and have lunch, take the rail, go work out at the Y, right? So creating those memories.
As far as the program with Sierra Madre Elementary School, I know my second grade daughter was thrilled to see those 3 coaches there, and she had a great time. Is that something, was that a one-time deal? Is that something you want to continue as far as your commitment to the community, or what's the future look like for that program?
Yeah, as long as the school is invested in continuing that partnership with us, we would still be interested to offer that play program, and that's something that the Y, you can speak to outside successes, but we offer that throughout all our service areas, and it's a great program, and it just kind of highlights how our mission-driven work that we do.
Yeah, we have different branches that work with different districts. In Torrance, they have probably about, I would say, 3,000 students in that play program, and just in Torrance, and different schools. In the Valley, we have the North Valley facility. They probably have 8,000 students in the play program as well. So it's how the relationship builds up with the school district, and sky's the limit.
And I think most of us, or all of us here on the council, are aware of the elevator issue. It's a special elevator with special parts. So is that prohibiting you from doing programming upstairs, or are you still able to do programming upstairs with the elevator issue?
I would put us in a slippery slope, right? Because it wouldn't be equitable for all. If there was someone that wanted to participate in a program and they had, in a wheelchair or limited mobility, and that's kind of the light that it puts us in. And that's why we try to shy away from that. It's just because we don't want to make someone feel, less than, because we're all equal, right?
Understandable. Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? Well, thank you for your patience with us. Thank you for your presentation tonight, gentlemen. I'm going to go ahead now and see if the public would like to comment one last time. If you come up, please make sure you limit your remarks to just 3 minutes. Do we have any yellow cards?
You need to do a yellow card again?
Come on up. let's
Can we sit down?
Yes, please. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to address a couple of the things that came up just because I've been going to the pool since 2005. In the 8 years that I went to Waterworks, not once were they shut. Not once did they have a staffing issue. Even during COVID, they were always open every day. Like I said, lap swim, rec swim, taking kids there, taking swimming. It's sad and it like kills me to see a pool shut during peak hours. 11, 12, 1, 2, when it's summer, when people want to go swimming, when kids get out of summer school and they want to go to the pool. There's no pool to go to. It's really sad to just see that's what's become of our pool. My kids grew up going to that pool, even when they don't even want to go to the pool anymore. They used to love to go to that pool. So it's, I don't know why. And for 2 years, they keep saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And 2 years they didn't produce. Not once were they ever open midday. Like who would want to, that's our pool, we can't even go to it midday. The weekends, forget that. What if you have to work? And then you can't even get a reservation. You used to get to go an hour. And now what, 30-minute lap swim? If you can get a spot, if they don't call and cancel. You know, like I said, the hours are not good for working people at all. And that's, you know, maybe it's good for seniors that don't have to go to work, but for people that have to work all day and want to take their kids to the pool, you can't. So, and I know kids that went to the YMCA summer camp and they've seen that deteriorate. They said they went to the YMCA summer camp to go swimming and they didn't even get to go swimming. So how sad is that? I remember when I took my kids to the pool, when it was Waterworks, when it was a city pool, all the YMCA kids would be there happy at camp, coming over swimming. Not just the YMCA, Bethany, all these kids were coming. You don't even see kids from camps from all over the community going to the pool anymore because it's closed. And how sad is that for a summer camp kid? This is coming from a teacher and a parent. Like, we all bounced back from COVID. They can only use the COVID card so much because Waterworks stayed open during COVID. They never shut down other than that like first 3 months. So they were always staffed. So I don't know, it's pretty sad. That I don't feel like they have the funding to do what like Waterworks can. Like, they can't compete with what they can offer, or even what the city pool had to offer. It was like a great place with great memories for all the kids going there. I heard they didn't even have the boat race, all these things that these kids missed out on that they like looked forward to doing. So it's just something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and one last thing since I have time. Never, when I went to Waterworks, was there anybody not on deck. There was always like more than enough staff out there. So that comment, I didn't like that at all, that there was no lifeguards out there. So there was always people out there. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marie Metzger. I started coming over to this pool in December, and there are 3 things that I think you should know about it. 1, the staff has been incredible. The people at the front desk have been very helpful, especially to those of us who are not as skilled at using our cell phones as many people are. The second thing is there's a real sense of community, and that part of that, I think, is due to the fact the instructors are very good. They create that sense of community, and there are always one lifeguard for 25 people. And if there are 26 people, either a second lifeguard is called in or that person doesn't get in the pool, because that's the rule. So we always feel safe. And the third thing is that for many of us, it is affordable. I hate to think that I will see the YMCA, or not the YMCA, but this particular pool as being unaffordable. So I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Hi there again. Promise they're unique. So a few things to comment on. First off, I want to reiterate just off the last point is that we would match or beat the pricing for all aerobics, lap swim, rec swim that the Y has and offered for Sierra Madre residents. It's important to notate and highlight, and I know you guys had some questions around that, is the lots of transitions.
Get a little closer to the mic.
Sorry.
There you go.
Sorry, the lots of the transitions that the Y has experienced. I've been here from day one. I've seen many of your familiar faces. I've seen the mayors through the years. I started and was dialoguing with the city back in 2012, and I'm still here now. In fact, you'll see the same managers here when we started in 2012 to here. They're still here. I think that's a testament right there to how committed we are. My sister lived in Sierra Madre for years. We had hundreds of Sierra Madre residents speak out when it was up for renewal. The question really, I think, is do you want to look at this as a whole, or do you want to look at it from the experts of an aquatic center versus a rec center? And they were mentioning 26 other facilities and things like that. We already have the infrastructure. We've already hired the lifeguards. We have the lifeguards. We've had the lifeguards. We've had the swim instructors. We've never compromised our aquatics program. In fact, we offered more hours for aerobics, more hours for rec swim, more hours for lap swim. We hosted all the community events. So it's unfortunate there is some misinformation. I love the questions asked, because seek into it and you will find. Our actions speak louder than our words. We hired Sierra Madre youth. We have names. We can give those to you. We've hired them throughout the years. People living right across the street from the aquatic center worked at the facility. We are highly invested. We have the same owner who's been there from the very beginning. We have these things, and so when we're talking about things open and staying open and things like that, we created the advisory board to dialogue with the city and things like that. And I know there was a point of saying, what happened to the advisory board? And that came up 2 years ago. It was because there was no interest, and the city didn't really work with us too well on finding candidates, because you had certain requirements for that advisory board to liaison with you. So there's a lot of misinformation, and I can speak highly because I've been here from the beginning. I know. I've seen the transitions. I've seen the communication gaps a little bit, and some misinformation. And as I stated, the pool has been opened, mixed temperature, not 83 degrees, 86 to 88 degrees, which is the best, if you look at it, the best temperature for all user groups, all user groups. And then there is the component of swim lessons, and open 7 days a week. The Y promised that when you guys were up for renewal that they'd be open 7 days a week, and they were not, and they have not. COVID is not an excuse, staffing issues not an excuse, because I can tell you right now, we've never experienced those issues. And they're running lean with they mentioned so many other branches and things like that. We were dedicated to Sierra Madre, and we can bring on the same management we had in 2012. They're still with us to oversee the aquatic center once again. So we have a highly invested interest. I've been here day in and out. I was at the commission meeting last week where there was no Y representation, okay? And I'm here to stay. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Looks like we have one more comment. Name and address?
Jill Klein, Pasadena. Waterworks is a for-profit swim school for children. We deserve a lot better at that pool. When we pay our Y membership, it doesn't just cover the pool. It covers exercise classes, yoga classes, all sorts of things other than just the pool. When you're paying money, $15 to swim laps at Waterworks, you're just paying for the pool. We deserve a lot more service than just a swim school for children that keeps the pool too warm for anybody else to enjoy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Name again and address?
Nancy Boyd, and I'm from Arcadia.
Okay.
From Sierra Madre, but I've been born and raised in Arcadia my whole life, and that is not the point. I have done the Y, and I did Waterworks. And if you go to I did Waterworks when they went to Garish, and I swam there for an hour, 5 days a week, and there was never once a lifeguard. And you go into their facility on Walnut, which I have done, there is posters all over the wall. No guard on duty, no guard on duty. So they do not have lifeguards. And they do at the Y, and the Y works with you. And they are the best. Thank you.
Okay. I think I'm going to close public comment now, I think, because we're hearing some of the same comments again. I want to appreciate everyone's participation. And we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is our consent calendar, I believe, isn't it? Consent agenda? Yep. Madam City Clerk, would you do the honors, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the City Council this evening are 9 consent items for consideration. Consent item A is Resolution 22-63 approving certain demands. And it is recommended that the City Council approve Resolution 22-63, approving the payment of city warrants in the aggregate amount of $393,349.56. Also, Sierra Madre Library warrants in the aggregate amount of $9,142.85. And lastly, payroll transfer in the aggregate amount of $461,896.71. And this for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023. Consent item B is the Treasurer's Report for the quarter ending June 30, 2022. It is recommended that the City Council receive and file the City Treasurer's Report for cash and investment portfolio for the quarter ending June 30, 2022. Consent item C is Resolution 22-62. It's the approval of the investment policy. It is recommended that the City Council approve Resolution 22-62. And that's the approval of the fiscal year 2022-2023 investment policy. Consent item D is the notice of completion for the fiscal year 2021-2022 library parking improvement project. It is recommended that the City Council accept the completed work by Falcon Construction, Inc. on behalf of the city and direct staff to file a notice of completion with the Los Angeles County Clerk Recorder. Award of landscape service contract, 2-year extension for fiscal year 2022 and 2023 to fiscal year 2023 through 2024, Merchants Landscape Services, Inc. It is recommended that the City Council approve the extension of the existing contract with Merchants Landscape Services for citywide landscape services in the amount of $166,791 per fiscal year through June 30, 2024, and request that the mayor execute the amended agreement on behalf of the city. Consent item F is the approval of Resolution 22-60, adopting revisions to the City of Sierra Madre's personnel rules and regulations. It is recommended that the City Council approve Resolution 22-60, which adopts revisions to the City of Sierra Madre personnel rules and regulations. Consent item G is ordinance number 1458. This amends Chapter 17.88 of the Temporary Use Permits of Title 17 Zoning of the Sierra Madre Municipal Code. It is recommended that the City Council conduct a second reading of ordinance number 1458 by title only. This amends Chapter 17.88 Temporary Use Permits of Title 17 Zoning of the Sierra Madre Municipal Code. Consent item H is the second reading of City Council Ordinance 1461, recommending 1, the approval of a zoning change and zoning map amendment, 2, approval of a specific plan, and 3, approval of a development agreement for the Meadows at Bailey Canyon Specific Plan project. It is recommended that the City Council conduct a second reading by title only of ordinance number 1461 pursuant to Planning Commission Resolution 22-11. And finally, consent item I is the adoption of Resolution number 22-61, approving the Area D Regional Community Emergency Response Team, CERT, Mutual Aid Agreement. And it is recommended that the City Council approve the Area D Regional Community Emergency Response Team Mutual Aid Agreement to adopt Resolution 22-61, approving membership within the Area D CERT team, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the city. Mr. Mayor, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. That was quite a bit. You better get a sip of water. Well, let me just take this from the top, and we'll see if you have questions on item per item. Item A, B, C, D, E.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I do too. Go ahead.
Having looked at this and having had some conversations, I really don't have a question as much as I would like to give staff the opportunity to explain some of the discussions that they've had with merchants about improving service levels and perhaps in part electrifying some of the equipment that they use, just so that we can hear from that and the public can hear about that.
Thank you, Councilmember Creeves. Deputy Director Inez can report on that.
Good evening, Mayor Goss, Mayor Pro Tem Garcia, honorable members of the City Council. Yes, ma'am. A discussion was held as far as analyzing the services that they are currently providing. I'm happy to say that moving forward with merchants, additional in-depth analysis was conducted, and what I mean by that is that additional service will be provided and making sure that certain vegetation is taken care of, certain regions of our city are taken care of throughout the seasons of the year, which requires soil amendments, additives, along with special pruning to some of our vegetation in our city. All this was taken into consideration, and in the end, Merchants Landscape provided exactly what we needed and what we need now.
And then can you detail a little bit about their discussion around electrifying certain of their equipment?
Yes, ma'am. Regulations does require for us to provide, for the vendor to provide a 25%. In this case here, that is the minimum requirement that is required by the LA County. In this case here, Merchants is willing to provide 35%, if not more. They will provide blowers, other electrical battery operated equipment to provide service to our city.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
If I could follow up on that.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you had, Mayor.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
So is there a way to increase that above the 35%? Can we get to 45? Can we get to 50? I guess, has that been part of the conversations? And what are the conversations had to try to continue to push this and electrify everything?
Yes, excellent question. That conversation was we had that conversation. We will begin at 35%, if not possibly 40, then gradually moving on to looking into the 2023, 2024 fiscal year, hopefully at 45, even 50%. As new regulations and new ordinances do come down the road, that is what I'm looking for. That is what Director Samito and I will be looking forward to, as far as making sure that Merchants Landscape complies with that agreement that we discussed.
Just a follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
Because these are all, the electrified stuff is all the smaller stuff, like handheld equipment, right?
Correct. Not
like a ride-along mower or something like that.
No, that is correct.
Because I'm hoping that in the future, maybe we're not ready now, but I saw some ride-along mowers demonstrated here a few months ago that presumably we're told had an 8-hour operating life that could actually cut costs and we wouldn't be burning gas. So I'm just wondering if that's an option that we can get them to consider in the next year or two.
That is correct, Mayor Goss. Down the road, I would like to consider that. There are many components when it comes to an 8-hour battery-operated mower. There is additional devices which do require electrical plug-ins, et cetera, area, space, designated areas. But that is something to look forward down the road. Perhaps after the end of the contract agreement, we could revisit that and further discuss that in more detail.
Certainly the reduction of gasoline-powered equipment at any level is probably a good thing. So it's 25% is great, but you're saying we're going to get at least 35%?
35%, if not more. I'm looking at hopefully maybe even 40.
Okay.
And I appreciate that it's a 2-year term so that we can revisit this pretty quickly. I mean, it sounds like they're going to make some strides during this term, but it'll come around, I think, sooner than we think, and then we can be talking about, even more improvements.
Excellent point, yes.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
Item F.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Go ahead. All right.
You guys are chomping at the bit on this one.
Most thrilling thing on this.
Yeah, well, it's 185 thrilling pages of rules and regulations, which I am sure every member of staff has read thoroughly. I think that my recollection was the last time this was updated was 2014, if that's correct. First, I wanted to commend staff for all of the edits on it. It was extensive. My question is that are we going to have a more frequent review and update of these regulations in the future, potentially to deal with all of the bills that we heard that came through the legislature or that come through California's legislature every year?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Yes, we do an annual review, but it really depends on the legislative updates that prompts us to make the changes to the state or federal regulations that are changing. So we stay in contact with our legal, our labor attorneys to provide us any updates. I'll give you an example. We started this review quite a few years ago, back in 2019, 2020. The pandemic hit, that sort of set things aside. We resumed the review in 2021, and through the meet and confer process, which took a little bit of time, working through the meet and confer with our bargaining groups. And then in 2022, a significant change in the state FMLA, CFRA, or the FMLA, the federal, and the CFRA for our state, we're making some significant changes. So we postponed the update until that went into effect so that we can incorporate those changes into this update. And then some other issues and some review and other reviews were occurring after the first of the year, which delayed that process of getting this to City Council, before City Council for adoption. But typically we do an annual overlook of the rules, and if there's any significant legislative updates, we will bring those forward. And there hasn't been in the last few years, other than the FMLA that just went into effect this beginning of this year. So we do 3 to 4 years is usually the amount of time it takes for any legislative updates and regarding labor. So we keep track of that, and so depending on that is when we would bring it forward.
So it was 5 years, if I understand correctly, 5 years from the time it was last amended to when you started amending it before, and then recognizing the pandemic threw a curveball and everything, and the challenges or the process that you need to follow in working with the bargaining units. Do you think that going forward you'll be able to have more timely updates on it? Do you think the process is going to be smoother in the process in the future, or do you think that this is just kind of the spaghetti that we've got as a municipal government?
I think it depends on what needs to be updated. We obviously the significant laws that go into effect will prompt a quicker response to this to change, and there may be just one section that we may bring forward to update. Generally, we like to bring all of the changes all together at once, but in the last few years there hasn't really been any big updates. The Department of Transportation was another huge update that was now incorporated into this policy. So we try to keep that going, and in 2019 we brought forward a specific section to update. So we have done piece by piece certain sections, but when we start to see a significant change in various sections, that's when we'll bring it all together. And the meet and confer process depends on the section of the policy, may take some time to go back and forth and get the bargaining groups to agree to the changes that are being considered. And that was part of the process this time around. And because there were several sections that were being considered for update, it took some time going back and forth to come to an agreement with the language and all that. So that process in itself, it can be quick or it can take some time depending on how many sections are being updated. And that's the challenge that we could potentially have in the future moving in updating the policy.
So yeah, Councilmember Parker took the question right out of my mouth. So I just want to follow up a little bit. Well, thank you, Assistant City Manager Hernandez. We don't see you up here very often, so it's always a pleasure. Regarding, my concern was regarding annual updates to labor laws. Obviously FMLA and CFRA are important. Those are kind of more encompassing, but when we have Assembly bills or Senate bills regarding some of these other issues. So you answered that very well. But as far as the transmission, does our labor attorney contact us when these bills are coming down and they're going to be signed and put into effect, or Do we proactively have to ask them for if there's an update necessary? What's the protocol there?
Sure. We receive notifications of legislative updates from our labor attorneys, and through that, when we review the updates, if any of those updates are going to impact the policy, we will take action, work with our labor attorneys to update the language, update the section, or add a section to the policy. And once that is done, then we meet and confer with the bargaining groups, and then we bring forward to council. So it just depends on what is being updated that will prompt this change. If it's a significant change, then that will obviously be a lot quicker review and bring forward to council. If it's something that is not going to negatively impact the employees or the policy, then we will hold off on that until something significant, so we can incorporate a lot of changes all at once.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I
sort
know-
of what we did with this is we had a lot of changes that needed to be updated, and with the CFRA and FMLA being updated, we said, let's bring it forward.
Thank you. I know it's not the time for comment, but to see all the blue that's in here, not very much red, a lot of blue. There was a lot of work that went into this, so thank you to you, yourself and staff for coming through that.
Thank you.
Other questions? Ditto. Thank you for your help. Okay, item G. Item H.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Maybe a little out of, I just want to note for the record that even though this is on consent, as many of you know who were here until the end of last meeting, we spent quite a bit of time going through ordinance 1461 point by point. So if anyone's interested in hearing that who wasn't here or wasn't able to be here, that will be on the recording towards the end of the meeting, where the action for first reading of ordinance 1461 was well debated.
Any questions or other comments? Item I.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Why don't you go over this time?
It's your turn. It's
Yeah.
your turn.
Okay, I have to find it. Well, I think I have it off my head. It's one of these. I believe in section 2, there was something about provisions, and there were maybe 5 or 6 different items that, in order to be part of this mutual aid, we had to make sure that our CERT team is trained in these different components. So I don't know if, I know we have members of CERT here. We have Pat Alcorn, but we also have our fire chief. How are we as far as the amount of CERT members that we can fulfill these opportunities or these rules to be part of the mutual aid?
Great question, and thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem Garcia. As far as the actual numbers, I would have to defer to the CERT membership themselves. But our piece to this, as the agency that is sponsoring our city's CERT team, is we will aid and assist in as many certifications or qualifications as we can. But there are some that, I guess, depending on the deployment or the request, we would either be able to fill them or not. And that's going to be the same even on our response as an emergency as a fire department. We don't have specialists in certain things that may not be trained, and they may have to look elsewhere. And so we will be establishing those lists. I know that they're going to have to establish those lists as well to offer up to the area. And I think what we're really doing is looking at that. This is the foundation and the framework for this. And I thought it to be very important for us to get in on this as early as possible. There's not many cities in the area that are doing so yet. Our CERT team is ready and willing and able to do this. And so there are probably a few things to work out a little bit still, to be honest with you, but I couldn't leave this out. We never know when the next thing's going to happen, and we may need the help. So we will be working with our CERT team to figure out these responsibilities and certifications.
Can a member of the fire department or a police department fill in one of those roles, or does it actually have to be a certain member for those provisions, if you know?
That's going to be these are going to be CERT members. We're going to have our own responsibilities and our own actions that we're going to take place. We do collaborate with them on training. We have some stuff scheduled and coming up. There are certain things that we assist with, but as we know, the CERT is to augment and to help with some voids that we may have as a city in a disaster, or even in just some of our events. Wisteria Festival being one of them that draws numerous crowds. We can use not only our own CERT team, but we can reach out to the others to help out. So yeah, to answer your question, it would be a CERT member and not sworn staff, if you will.
Thank you. And I know, again, it's not time for commenting, but I would encourage someone from CERT to come up and talk about the calendar of things that are coming up during public comment, because there's opportunities for us as members of the community to get involved within CERT and maybe increase that membership. Thank you.
I'm just gonna respond to Mayor Pro Tem. I mean, I'm not gonna give a legal opinion on this, but I did not read this to create obligations. To me, it was more of a statement of purpose, and these are the kinds of things that we would like you to support, but I did not read it if we were unable to provide the, scope or depth of support that would somehow render us, in default or not meeting our commitment.
It's very helpful. Maybe I was thinking of it as far as the mutual aid that we have with our professional fire department, et cetera. So,
yeah, so what I do is I equate it to the mutual aid that we have as well, especially when we look at the wildfires throughout the state. We're part of the mass mutual aid program, and quite often, depending on staffing, we will just say we are unable to fill due to staffing or whatever. And I would assume the same would be for this program. They either have the qualifications for certain aspects that they're looking for. They may not have the staffing at that particular time. So, yeah, as Councilmember Creep says, it's really not there's no strings attached kind of deal, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very helpful.
So, the CERT team we're really fortunate to have a CERT team. They've got a very strong presence in the city. They've got a strong team, have worked really hard on it. I noticed in the mutual aid agreement, under the list of members, cities, and agencies in the Area D, there's 23 cities that are there, and there are 10 cities that have CERT teams. And you had mentioned just a minute ago, Chief, that if we needed additional support, we may be able to call on other CERT teams in other areas. One of the things I just want to be cautious of and concerned about is keeping our CERT team energized, motivated, and not burnt out. And I look at this and I could see some of these cities that don't have CERT teams go, oh, look, a new resource, and calling on them frequently to come to us. And so I just want to ask kind of how you are working with the CERT team to try to make sure, just as you do with your own fire team, to make sure that they stay balanced, motivated, energized, and not burnt out. So I don't know how you're thinking about that, how you're thinking working with CERT on it. I'm in full support of this. I just want to make sure that we continue to have this incredible resource in our community.
Absolutely, and great question, well received. In talking with some of the CERT members themselves, they're super excited about this and the opportunity to actually use their skills and the things that they've learned. We're fortunate where we don't have a lot of events, and if that gets them the opportunity to utilize their skills and stay engaged and keep members, because I know that's been a problem in the past. They're not very active, so members lose interest. Well, if we are able to support our neighbors, that's going to keep them engaged and keep them active. And as far as getting burnt out, I would just kind of reiterate my belief of the intent of this is, if we can help, we will. If we can't, we won't. And obviously our priority would be here for our community. So that's my understanding of this program.
We're gonna have to come up with some more emergencies to challenge our CERT team.
No, thank you.
Can't make that happen.
Okay, well, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
So I'd like to see if I can get a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, we do have some speakers who'd like to provide public comment.
My bad, excuse me. Yes, let's open this up for public comment on any item on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a speaker card from Pat Alcorn, followed by Robert Jerde.
Hi, Mr. Mayor and Council. First of all, I'd like to thank Chief Bartlett and the Fire Department for all the support that they have given us. It's been marvelous. And I do want to thank you for the consideration of our membership in Area D Mutual Help. We're currently building up our membership, and as you...
A little closer to the mic, Pat. There you go.
As you know, that we are having a training class in the next couple of weeks, and we do have some openings, and Robert will be maybe talking about that. And the training that we're going through, there are 3 different levels that we can have. The basic training is for people to help their neighbors and help themselves, and help minimal help in the community. To have mutual aid, we do need to have a little more level of training, and several of us are going through that training right now. So we should be able to have, by the end of the year, enough of our volunteers that we would be able to help provide mutual aid if it was needed. And I really do have to assure you that we will not go out of Sierra Madre. If the area is impacted, we will stay right here in Sierra Madre to help. And also, as the chief said, a lot of our members were trained maybe 5, 6, 8 years ago, and they come to meetings to get upgrades on training, but I think they would really love to be able, they're volunteers, they would love to be able to volunteer and to help. So if there is a disaster, volunteers will be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Alcorn.
And Mr. Mayor, Robert Jerde is the next speaker. He's filled out 2 cards and has asked for additional time if he may.
Okay.
I don't know that I need it.
Is it for 2 different issues or just?
Yeah.
Okay.
2 different consent.
Okay,
calendar
good
items.
enough.
The first is on item H, and I'm not representing CERT for that. I'd like to thank the City Council for the process you've led the city through regarding the Meadows project, even though I've not agreed with every decision you've made. The city has had about almost 20 meetings, dozens of hours of public comment and deliberation. The EIR found no significant impacts despite some of the hysteria you might hear from others here. The Meadows project is good for Sierra Madre. I've seen it probably argued over every possible issue on the Meadows project and the Measure HR proposal. Again, this project is good for Sierra Madre. With a 3-acre park, 40 acres of hillside placed in conservancy, almost $1 million in net zero water offsets, and the rain capture at the park, no alternative will provide these items for the city. This project to replace the parking lot is a reasonable project for Sierra Madre, and that's what it is. The meadow is a parking lot. It was man-made. It was never a meadow. Speaking on item I for CERT, CERT Area D Mutual Aid. The project kind of got derailed during COVID. I was involved prior to that. In fact, it was in February 2020 we had our last meeting. But during COVID, it gave Sierra Madre CERT an opportunity to create our standard operating procedures, which have been designed to interface with Area D Mutual Aid. We also received a grant during COVID of almost $5,000 to help the city pay for background checks on CERT members, which is a part of the process for qualifying for Area D Mutual Aid. We still have a lot to do with CERT on our to get geared up for this. And it is two-way. Being involved in Sierra Madre CERT means the city can receive help from outside. Also, there's no obligation by any volunteers to be involved in a call out, either in the city or out of the city. Everyone here is volunteers. So as part of the work we have to do, we do have our basic training class starting October 15th through the 22nd. You can sign up at sierramadrecert.org. We'd love to have you all get trained too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yurden. Okay, is there any other public comment?
No other speaker cards, Mr. Mayor, and there were no emails received for the consent calendar.
Thank you. So I will bring this back to council and ask again if we can get a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
I will move to approve the consent agenda and also thank the leadership of CERT, much like we thanked the fire chief and the fire department for this development.
Ditto.
I'll second that on both parts.
Okay, we have a motion. It's seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we move on to the public hearing on ordinance number 1460, First Amendment to the Master Lease Agreement with Tower Point Capital LLC for an extension of the lease area for wireless communication sites on city property.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council. I'm here again for the Tower Point lease extension amendment. Tonight, we have a public hearing for an amendment to the existing lease agreement with Tower Point for the AT&T and T-Mobile tower site. The amendment consists of the extension of the existing land leased of 285 square feet. The new area for this is for storage for emergency generators at the site. The existing 99-year lease agreement with Tower Point was considered and approved by council on October 22nd, 2019. The current agreement with Tower Point states that any additional revenue generated from the lease is split 55% to 45% in favor of the city. The additional revenue for the 285 square feet is $660 per month to the city. Tower Point is offered to pay off the $660 per month to the city for a one-time payment of $122,100 for the remainder of the 99-year lease, which is 96 years now. If council elects the monthly payments, the city will receive 55% of revenue generated from the new agreement for the additional square footage. If council elects the lump sum, the city forfeits any future negotiated revenue for the 96-year term of the lease. The council may choose either form of payment for the newly leased area. Staff recommends the city council open a public hearing, receive comments from the public, and approve the First Amendment to the Master Lease Agreement with Tower Point Capital LLC for the expansion of the existing leased property for wireless communication sites on city property at 621 East Sierra Madre Boulevard for a total of $660 per month, and adopt ordinance 1460 in your package. And I trust that we received all the attachments in this report. Okay, I'm here for any questions.
Questions?
I can go. So if I understand correctly, if we accept the lump sum and Tower Point renegotiates its lease with AT&T for a higher rate, we don't get any more money.
That is correct.
Got it. Okay. And how often does Tower Point and the telecom companies renegotiate leases?
Currently, they're in a 17-year lease. So in 17 years, they'll renegotiate the leases with the two providers.
Are any of the leases up for renegotiation in the short term?
As it is with this particular property and the two providers at this tower, it's the 17 years. There is a Verizon tower that Tower Point also owns the lease to, and I'm not sure when that lease is up for negotiation, but we have sold that lease to Tower Point. That's under the same 99-year contract.
So in the staff report, there were two leases up, one for October 11th and one for October 31st. Who are those with?
Those are with T-Mobile and AT&T, and those have been renegotiated.
They have been completed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
We do own another tower, I'm sorry.
No.
We do own another tower in the yard that isn't leased by Tower Point, and it's for Sprint. And Sprint is, as you know, joined T-Mobile. So they have added an additional carrier on their tower for an additional, I don't recall the exact amount, but it is in our agreement with them that any additional monies that they receive, we get 55% of that also. So we will be receiving more money for the other tower in the yard.
Just as a follow-up, kind of the flip side of Councilmember Parker's question, upon renegotiation, which now you've mentioned, at least with the two contracts that were, the underlying contracts, are 17 years. Theoretically, if those get renegotiated and they are for less, then we would receive 55% of a lower amount, correct?
That's correct.
I did do some quick math, and it looked like even in that 17 years for 12 months, we would still be getting $134,640 during, at $660 a month. So it seems to me that even with that risk, the monthly payment seems worth it. And then just one additional question. Remind me, with the tower that was put up here next to the public safety building, do we have a similar arrangement with respect to revenue sharing for additional carriers?
Yes, we do. And we do own that tower. We own the lease to that tower, yes. We have not sold that tower.
Okay, great, thank you.
I think my questions were exhausted.
Mine were.
So thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Semino. So this is a public hearing, so I'd like to get public comment on this item, if there is any. I think it's that time of the evening where there isn't. So I'll bring it back to the council. I don't know how much we need to hash this out.
Yeah, I think that the risk relative to the reward really sets us up for needing to take the monthly payment. I think the monthly payment's the way to go. As Councilmember Krebs did her quick math, it does make sense, especially if there's a new carrier or if there's negotiations for increases in leases. I know she asked the question, if there's a decrease in lease, but how often do rents go down? So I do like the idea of getting a lump sum, but for such two small pieces of property and a relatively small amount of money, I just feel like it would get absorbed too quickly anyway. So I'm happy with this fixed income payment that's coming in year after year that we can rely upon relatively up until technology changes. But I'm comfortable with going forward with the monthly payment rather than the lump sum for now.
Okay.
I agree. I mean, not just because of my math, but also, and just to put my question in context, I was thinking of the point that you made at the end about technology changing. I could see, the carriers coming to them and saying, look, we're still providing this obsolete service for the antique people in Sierra Madre still using their cell phones. Can we reduce the rate? But I mean, so I don't think it's more possible than in other instances, but I still can see that it's a remote possibility. And in any case, I think the math still bears out. And I just think, again, if it was a higher lump sum amount, it might have been a harder, a more close call, both in the sense that you raised of like it making an impact today on things that we need to do, but also, and today's money being, spent well at this, at today's moment. But given the amount, it's probably not going to make a meaningful difference in much of what we're needing to do on a grand scale. And the fact that I think, theoretically, if there was a point in time when we did need a lump sum, I suspect we could go and ask for a payout at that point at a discount rate that would, effectively get us where we are, plus having had a couple years perhaps of the monthly fee. So I'm in support of this recommendation.
Okay.
I'm in support as well. I think that the one thing to note is that this tower's already been upgraded. It's got 5G technology on it, so it's already state of the art. And I recognize that in I think it's a 20-year lease that's going to change. We'll probably be at 10G or maybe we'll be at satellite. Who knows? But there you go. Skip the G's. Go on. But I do think that it's that the monthly payment makes a lot of sense for us, and it is, you know, it's not huge either way, but I think that the potential upside outweighs the potential downside.
Would you like to make a motion to that effect?
I'll move to, what are we moving to tonight?
First
That's
reading.
the first reading of ordinance 1460, the First Amendment to the Master Lease Agreement with TowerPoint Capital LLC for an extension of the lease area for wireless communication sites on city property.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. And we move to a discussion item on consideration of adoption of ordinance 16442.
Mr. Mayor, before the city council hears a presentation on this, I'd like to correct a typo that's contained within the report. The agenda report is asking for the city council to consider ordinance 1462. There is a typo. The ordinance number is really, is not 1642, but it should be 1462. The numbers got inverted. The attachment and the draft resolution that's attached to the report is correct. The typo is contained within the agenda report. So not 1642, but instead 1462.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Discussion item 1 on tonight's agenda is consideration of adoption of Ordinance 1462. The ordinance will make amendments and elimination of certain portions of the city's parking and traffic control codes. I will read the full text of the recommendation at the end of my report. This ordinance is intended to provide for general cleanup practices of this section of the code. It also intends to shift minor adjustments to parking and traffic control regulations from formal city council code amendment process to the authority of the city manager or his or her designee. In addition to this shift and general updating and clarification, improvements, the ordinance also adds section 10.24.157, and that's titled Specific Purpose Parking, which will allow for parking for a specific purpose, obviously. This could include, but is not limited to, next to an ATM machine for 20 minutes, the public safety vehicle parking in front of the police department, dedicated pharmacy parking with a time limit, and even the future EV charging station locations. Staff would also like to note that there are 2 typos in the proposed Chapter 10.24 section. 10.24.150, the final sentence should say 2 hour instead of 1 hour. 10.24.055, the final sentence should say 3 hour instead of 1 hour. The ordinance number and these corrections will be made before any second reading of the ordinance is presented. In conclusion, staff recommends that the City Council adopt Ordinance 1462, amending Chapter 10.24, Stopping, Standing, and Parking, to Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic, and eliminating Sections 10.32.020 through Streets, 10.32.030 stop intersections, 10.32.040 angle parking on certain streets, 10.32.050 parking time limit on certain enumerated streets, and 10.32.060 parking prohibited at all times on certain streets. That's the end of my report. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Management Analyst Carlson. A very clear and easy to understand report. Are there any questions?
Just a quick one. What was the driver? Was this just a general cleanup of code? Was there anything else that was driving it?
And when we're doing some, it really was, came from downtown. We were doing some Kirsten Court renovations, you know, when we start looking at the library, adjusting from parallel to diagonal. When the street decks for dining go in, we did get a lot of considerations of maybe we should shift some time zones for parking. If we were going to eliminate a spot over here, maybe we add 20 minutes to try to take into that account. The absence of the bus line now too presents us opportunity to add spots, whereas dark red curb where the bus stop used to be. All of these little considerations, we didn't want to have to go through a 6-week process to do it. We looked at other cities, and pretty much no other city has a schedule of streets, which is so formal that any change has to come in front of the city council. So among cleaning up and trying to make things a little bit more clear, adding that special purpose designation, we thought it was important to bring it here. We're doing a traffic study with Arcadia, and we wouldn't hate to wait 6 weeks to do the recommendations of curbing or signage after that traffic study's done at Mountain Trail and Orange Grove.
So if you wanted, if staff and the city manager wanted to dedicate a spot for a certain purpose, so you said, like, you know, taxi ride share, you said ATM. So if you wanted, would it also allow you to say something for EVs, or say we wanted to dedicate a parking spot in front of Best Buy Drug as a dedicated parking spot? Would this allow city staff and the city manager to make that dedication, or is it only for certain time designations, like a 1 hour, 3 hour, 2 hour time frame?
The recommended update is broad enough to allow some flexibility. The special purpose parking is a relatively new idea. It was silent in the code before, so we just wanted to make sure that it was implied that the city manager or his or her designee can go ahead and do that. I know City Manager Reynoso will bring anything to the council that he feels needs to be reviewed by the council.
And this would still meet all the requirements we have to with ADA and those designated parking spots as well? It doesn't change any of that?
Correct. It doesn't change the number of handicap spots or ramps or any of the other ADA considerations.
Thank you.
I just have one, or I guess two. I mean, I read through this. It seemed to me, other than the addition of the specific parking, specific purpose parking section, a lot of all the changes were just about allowing the city manager to designate someone, perhaps like the head of public works, or someone who might actually be working on these projects at a ground level, to be able to make some of these decisions without having to have the city manager weigh in on all of it. That was my take. Is that
Well, mechanically, there's probably going to be an internal discussion. It could be city manager, public works department. It could be the police department, like the school loading zones for drop off and pick up. We're working with the police department and the principal of Sierra Madre Elementary. We'd like to be able to move quickly if we want to put up signs and things for those purposes.
But my sense of it was that it was not actually reducing this, again, other than the special purpose provision, was not sort of reducing the scope of the city council's oversight, because really many of these things were already things that the city manager could do without necessarily bringing them to council. Or isn't that interpretation
I
not
think
correct?
that's what we were trying to correct. We were trying to eliminate everything coming to the city council for a 6-week process and be consistent with the other communities in our neighborhood, and just to have the city manager be able to make those calls.
Just so I'm clear, that when you keep referencing a 6-week process, so that means you'd come to us, make a presentation, we'd come back for first reading, we'd come back for a second reading, so that's, and assuming we have a meeting every 2 weeks, that's where the 6-week is. So it's really a minimum of 6-week process. If we've got 5 weeks in a month, we may not have that meeting, or if we take a meeting off, so it's a minimum of 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's the first reading, second reading, and 30 days once we find a spot on the agenda too.
Okay, I think we've exhausted our questions. Thank you. I'll throw this open to public comment, see if we have any takers. Looks like we don't.
Mr. Mayor, the city did receive one email from John Lloyd that was forwarded to the city council for review and consideration, and that email is on the city's website.
Okay, thank you. So bring it back to council. This all looks quite reasonable to me.
I can move to adopt ordinance 1462, amending sections 1024, 1032, it would, yeah, sections 1024 and 1032 for parking.
May I have a friendly amendment?
Yes.
It's actually the first reading again.
Oh, thank you. Yes, to adopt for first reading.
Okay, we have an amended motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
No? Or nay? No?
Nay knows.
Getting late. So that one carries unanimously. All right, so we go to the last item, discussion item, which has to do with short-term rentals in the city. Not a small issue.
Yeah, good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight I'd like to introduce for discussion the topic of short-term rentals. As was heard in public testimony during City Council's regular meeting in July, there are concerns of disruption of the public peace and residential character seemingly originating from short-term rentals, as I'll refer to as STRs, that are host to gatherings of loud parties running late into the night. STRs are residential rentals for periods not exceeding 30 days and are commonly advertised virtually on websites such as Airbnb, VRBO, and HomeAway. Code enforcement response to the complaints regarding STRs is typically informational, then followed by a short investigation to check if there is a business license issued in connection to the property, whether the property would be limited in any way from hosting an STR, then followed up with with a property owner if no business license for residential rental is found. Since 2020, there have been 5 responses by code enforcement and 4 by police department to complaints regarding STRs. More generally, police department has had 66 call complaints regarding parties, 117 regarding music, and 126 regarding other noise with no warning notices or citations issued. There are numerous arguments in favor of and against STRs. Proponents argue that encouraging them generates new revenue for the city and stimulates the local economy through promotion of tourism. Opponents argue that they are a negative impact to the residential community by causing displacement of permanent or long-term housing and impacts to on-street parking, sense of community, and property values. Today's Sierra Madre does not provide regulation with the exception of limitations on accessory dwelling units and historic property. Residents may be issued a business license for residential property rentals in much the same way any homeowner, property manager, or landlord would be required to maintain a business license for long-term rental. If City Council directs staff to draft an ordinance to regulate STRs, there are various ways to implement this in a way City Council feels most appropriate. The first would be to restrict and make illegal, with the example being the City of Santa Barbara, which only permits STRs in the same zones where hotels are legal. And just a side note on that, the City of Santa Barbara is actually holding a City Council meeting today to consider a ministerial process to allow for STRs. So that's going to be a little bit of an outdated information. The second way to implement ordinance would be to encourage and regulate. The example being the City of San Diego, residents may be issued a business license to operate a short-term rental. The third would be to allow and regulate. The example being City of Pasadena, which regulates STRs in 2 categories, the first being unhosted, second being unhosted. Hosted stays do not have the same nuisance impacts as unhosted stays and are therefore encouraged more than unhosted stays that tend to be more sources of nuisance impacts. In conclusion, STRs are found to make up only a small portion of the total housing stock in Sierra Madre, while enacting some form of regulation on STRs can be a powerful tool to preserve the residential character and prevent residential displacement. Limitation on STRs alone is not likely to be a full solution in response to the concerns surrounding disruption of public peace and residential character. And tonight, staff would like to recommend City Council provide direction to staff.
Thank you, Associate Planner Wolf. Well done. Got a lot of parts to this. Who wants to start?
Associate Planner Wolf, you did mention some numbers regarding noise complaints. It wasn't clear if all those were STRs or just I think there was like 197, that number is thrown out there. Was that all STRs or was just a portion of those? If you can run through those again and let us know how many were relative to STRs.
So 4 complaints to code enforcement and, I'm sorry, those numbers are switched. 5 complaints to code enforcement and 4 to police department, specifically mentioning STRs. Those other numbers that mention loud parties or music, don't necessarily exclude STRs, they just haven't identified that those sources of complaints are from an STR.
So what would be a code enforcement call for an STR?
Typically, it would be coming from a resident who believes that the subject property is hosting an STR. Namely, that comes from the character that oftentimes they see different people frequenting the property and residing there for short terms.
And then I'm assuming some type of police would be a noise ordinance type issue. So those 4 would be for that.
That's correct. It's normally in their first response to loud parties for which we have an ordinance.
Thank you.
So if I could follow up on that. So of the 318, we know that 9 are related to STRs, but there could be others that are related to them as well. It's something that we've started to document more recently. Like as I think you've said, we started to create a category code to track STRs more recently. So some of those noise complaints may or may not be related to STRs. Is that accurate?
So complaints is a different subject from business license. Business license, we've only been tracking recently for those that are registered for short-term rental, as recently as July of this fiscal year. So prior to that, we've only been issuing business license for property rentals, non-distinguishing short-term from long-term.
Okay.
And regarding complaints, again, the 9 regarding STRs specifically mention STRs in the complaint. But that doesn't mean that those other complaints about music, about parties, or so on, aren't actually stemming from STRs. They could be from weddings. They could be from just a party hosted for a birthday that is not rented out. But there's no way of really knowing from police response if the nuisance is a STR or something else.
And is there a process in the city to identify rentals, whether they're short-term or long-term? Like, do you do any, is it upon someone to come to the city for a business license, or is there any proactive state that you do to kind of check? Do you go to Verbo and HomeAway and all that and see how many are in Sierra Madre and if they have business licenses, or do you rely on those homeowners or those property owners to come and to get that license with you, with the city?
Staff relies on residents, and we act reactively to complaints, and then follow up those complaints with visits to the property in question.
Yeah. And that's the same way as with other rentals. So a long-term rental would be the same type of thing, right? So somebody could be renting their house out, and we wouldn't know it if they didn't disclose it to the city.
That's correct.
Okay.
Just to follow up on the 9 that you mentioned, are we actually verifying that those are all with respect to short-term rentals, or is it just that when they called in the complaint, the allegation was that it was a short-term rental?
It was just alleged.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a small number, but I was wondering also whether we actually even know if necessarily all 9 relate to an actual short-term rental. I guess my question is, I guess my point, I'll wait till discussion. Actually, I don't really have a question, I really have a point, so.
The total number of listings is again, what, 36 or something like that?
There was 36 listings according to a third-party source we received information on.
As far as we know, they've been listed for some time, could be years.
They're not active listings, they're just total listings documented.
So those are
36
total
unique.
listings document.
Right.
Because what I'm getting at, it seems like even if it's more than 9, it seems like there's not a whole lot of complaints. Seems like this is not a huge problem. I know that it's in front of us because of one extreme case up on Carter. So I'm kind of more interested in how we deal with extreme cases than kind of dealing with all the routine uses of these properties. That's not a question, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to wait till later to comment. I blew it, sorry guys. Any other questions before we go to comment? Okay. Thank you, Associate Planner Wolf.
Thank you.
I'll ask for public comment, if there is any. Here we go.
John Hiller at 39 North Lima Street, apartment D. I wasn't planning to come up here, but since this is on the agenda, I don't know if this is, I heard about 2 weeks ago. I was up awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, and my window faces south, and I heard either gunshots or fireworks, but there were 10 separate explosions or more. So I called the police, and they said they took my name and address, and so I was just out of concern. I just thought I'd bring this up, and yeah.
I don't think there's going to be any way for us to know.
Yeah.
If that's related or not.
If it's related or not, yeah. But I thought I'd just bring it up just for
Thank you,
safety
Mr.
issues.
Hiller. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any other public comment? Okay. Now we can comment. What I was thinking is that, I don't know, I mean, it just seems like having a business license requirement makes sense to me. We might even talk, I know, I don't want to say the T word, but we might even think about taxing these. I mean, when we have people coming in from outside of the city, they are using our public services, and the rest of us are already paying property taxes, so the thought suggests to me that maybe, I don't know, there's not a lot of revenue there, but a lot of cities tax these STRs.
And what's
Some
the
revenue out of it.
differentiation from an STR from an LTR?
Well, that's a good question.
Like I understand that, but I mean, from a tax perspective, this is what my question is that if we're going to tax STRs, do we tax a long-term rental, or is that?
Well, I'm just thinking that I'm treating an STR like a hotel tax.
Like a hotel tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because the property tax is paid either way, right? I mean, the property owner in town pays the tax, whether it's a short-term rental, an ownership, or long-term rental. So I think, you're thinking more of like a fee, like
Yeah.
you would pay to the city, like you see on every
Come
hotel
in and
bill.
use our town, pay a fee.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I don't like the idea of someone buying a property for the sole purpose of having a short-term rental in Sierra Madre. I do feel like that there's all kinds of incentives to do that. You're going to earn more if you're able to rent this thing out, right? You're going to earn a lot more than you are for a long-term rental. Right. And I would hate to see our city turning into a city that has a whole bunch of short-term rentals. But then on the flip side, as charming as we all know Sierra Madre is, I don't know what would lure people to want to have a short-term rental in Sierra Madre, other than maybe being close to the racetrack if there's some type of a big event there or concert or whatever might happen. I could see those one-offs occurring. So I'm trying to balance the idea of, would somebody come in and buy up properties, and that would be bad for renters in town, that it would push up rents because there'd be less available to rent. I could see problems with that, and it would. I feel like if it became rampant, it would change the fabric of these residential neighborhoods. So from that perspective, I don't like it. But another perspective, that why would somebody want to come to Sierra Madre and stay here for 3 nights unless they're visiting a family member? And is that person really a burden if they're here to visit family to the community? So I'm trying to balance those two things as I'm thinking about this.
So I guess my thought is we have 2 events every year right on New Year's Day that very close to the Rose Bowl and the Rose Parade. So people want to try to come here for that. 6 years from now, we're going to have a large influx of people from around the world here for the Olympics. So, I don't think it's a big concern, but I think it's worth getting our hands around. I applaud staff for creating a system to differentiate the long-term rentals from short-term rentals, so we can get a better idea of that. I think a small step in my mind would be to just go on all of the sites and see what houses in Sierra Madre have been rented over some period of time. I leave staff to decide on that, but something like 6 months or a year. Recognizing if it's a couple of years, owners could have changed and all that, but reach out to the owners and say, you know, look at, see who's got short-term rentals, cross-check that with business licenses. If there's a mismatch in that, contact the owner, say, we noticed that you've got a short-term rental, but you don't have a business license. We need you to fill one out. You know, I think that could be a simple starting place and at least get us a more handle on this, and then we can have another discussion as we collect more data. Because I don't think I've got enough really to tell one way or another of should we regulate it, should we not regulate it. At a minimum, I think we should have business licenses on it.
I think you bring up a good point regarding the Olympics, which is, again, 6 years out, but that could provide an opportunity for residents that want to get out of town and make a couple extra bucks, and that would be for residents. My fear was people buying up housing stock, and I don't know that we'll see that problem, but we've seen that problem with one property. It's my understanding that that individual lives out of state, and that is an issue. But on the flip side, right, opportunities for our residents that, you know, I don't want to be here during the madness. I'll make a few $1,000s or whatever it might be and get out of town and, you know, give someone an opportunity to stay somewhere other than a hotel.
Well, the Pasadena example, they put a 9-month minimum residency, which would give them 3 months out of the year that they could do short-term rentals, which is, you can make a lot of money, but that would kind of inhibit the situation we have up on Carter, where you have an absentee owner. Or we can play around with that length of 9 months, more or less.
I feel like I'm a lone holdout here. I feel like we have a solution in search of a problem. I am definitely not interested in regulating the one thing that we know is a problem right now, because I feel like there are other levers that we can pull to address those issues. You know, both the noise ordinance, you know, do they have a business license? Are we enforcing that? Honestly, I have to be, and I'll admit that we have a lack of information, so this is just based on my own kind of sense, but I have a hard time, I'm skeptical, let me put it that way, that property is rented out all the time. I mean, to your point, Mayor Pro Tem, I just don't know what the demand is for, you know, short-term stays in Sierra Madre. I mean, really, as we've seen, the demand is for long-term, very long-term stays.
Well, if I could just, I think the use was for parties. They're not there to stay in Sierra Madre. They're there to party.
Understood, right. But we're also not. I wouldn't view us as a particularly hot party venue, so I'm not sure how many parties you can rent out a house for in Sierra Madre to make it lucrative, right? I mean, sure, every once in a while, you know, but I mean, I don't know. I mean. And we've only received, you know, a few instances where they've had those events, so it's not like the situation where they're having, you know, weekly concerts or, you know, and if it got to that point, then I think we would have a problem. I guess my sense is that this is something that is a good topic to address, because it certainly is a broader issue within, you know, our community and, you know, our state and our world, but it just seems to me like this is not something that's of a magnitude in our city that would warrant, you know, new ordinances and new regulation. I can't believe I'm saying that, but yes.
So
I sound like the mayor.
do we have vehicles within our code to say, look, 3 strikes, you're out. I know you're the owner of the property, but you're having short-term tenants that are coming in and causing problems for this community, so that you may no longer have a business license in this town. If we could have some kind of mechanism that works like that, I think that could be a solution.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I guess that the Planning Commission would need to speak to what our enforcement mechanism is, or are there conditions placed upon, you know, if you have a business license, can you lose it for, you know, various offenses?
Yeah, I'd love to, yeah.
So yes, I believe the business license is conditional. It's a license, so it can be revoked. And in terms of if a license is revoked, ordinarily we would try to enforce what the underlying zoning code allows, and if it doesn't allow a business use, then we could seek code enforcement action based on that. If the council chooses, perhaps as a starting point, we could begin, like Councilman Parker said, compiling a list of homes that are being rented on these different sites, and then
from there, we can make sure that they're all licensed, and then if they violate their license, then as Councilmember Garcia said, or Mayor Pro Tem Garcia said, we could pursue some kind of code enforcement action.
And so we've got very specific, we have a very specific process in our code for violations. So does it allow us to get to the point of fines and revocation of license, or is it just the fine process and the business license is separate? Because I know we've had discussions here before of, we keep referencing the same section of the code, and I don't know it off the top of my head, to where the code enforcement is, but I don't know how that applies to business license. Can you educate me on that part?
So we have 3 different mechanisms for enforcement. The first is nuisance enforcement, which is a separate procedure, and that one is going to go before the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission makes a determination that there's a nuisance. Whatever code enforcement actions that have taken place will be levied as a lien against that property. So as a nuisance code enforcement action. And then we have the administrative citation procedure, which is the most common, and that's what we ordinarily do. And that's on a schedule, so it's $100 for the first one, $200 for the second one, and then $500 for every subsequent citation. And the third option, which we don't do in the city, but other cities do, is criminal enforcement. If they violate the municipal code, then it's a misdemeanor, and we can pursue criminal action against the owner of that property.
So where does the revocation of the business license fit into that? Is that in the second example, or is it?
The revocation of the business license is an entirely separate procedure that would happen administratively.
Okay.
Yeah,
We can do that now.
We could do that now.
Right.
I mean, I suppose we could talk about, if we really wanted to address this in some way, I mean, we could talk about having a separate fee schedule or fine schedule for short-term rental related infractions if we thought that would be more, you know, de-incentivizing. But it sounds like we have some decent mechanisms already in place that we could leverage. When you say that we don't pursue things criminally, is that because it's not provided for in our code, or because we don't have our own, you know, kind of DA type situation and we'd have to refer it out, or we just haven't done it previously? I just wasn't sure.
It's the practice in this city. Generally speaking, it's the city attorney that will pursue criminal cases. So when I worked in the Glendale City Attorney's office, commonly I would go to court for people that are charged with misdemeanors for violating municipal code, such as drunk in public or in the park past 10. And of course we wouldn't put anyone in jail. Instead, we would have some kind of diversionary program or community service. But there would be a penal consequence for some of these actions. In the city of Sierra Madre, we just don't have that practice.
But not that it was prohibited, it's just not been.
Correct. It would be at the discretion of the city manager.
So there's that too.
I feel like a misdemeanor is pretty aggressive.
That's pretty
Well,
aggressive.
I would think that would be in place for someone with like a repeat performer, right? Like if we, for example, you know, this house that's been, you know, subject of complaints, if it kept happening, at some point, you know, you would probably want to escalate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we're having this conversation. So given what we have now, we have actually tools, particularly if we cross-reference with properties we know are doing this. We have tools right now that if we get a complaint, we can check that list. If they're not licensed, well, we've got them all ready for administrative citation, right? And so we have to wait for another administrative citation, or how can we get tougher? Let's say they just $100 is nothing and they just party on.
So I'm actually not intimately involved with the licensing process. I'm not sure if Planner Wolf knows exactly how the licensing process takes place.
Thank you, City Attorney. If I may elaborate on the licensing process, we currently do not distinguish between short-term and long-term rentals, and therefore any property owner who wishes to rent their property need only apply for a business license, and they do that on the annual period. That's renewed. They're sent an automatic renewal notice, and they get that renewed every year. Now this is, if we're considering short-term rental, we may want to consider the option and the ability to only rent short-term rental specific properties for periods not longer than 30 days, since that's what a short-term rental essentially functions as.
That makes sense.
May I ask a question, Mayor? Planner Wolf, earlier did you say that the city began, I thought the city started having short-term rental designations on their business license as of July? Maybe I misunderstood.
We have a distinguishing category, but it functions essentially the same as any other residential property. We categorize it differently so that we may start reporting on it.
And I haven't reviewed the license form in quite some time, but I believe there's a provision in there that says that your license may be revoked if you violate a condition of the municipal code, or if you violate some provision of the municipal code.
I haven't reviewed the form in that much depth recently either, but you may be right. We'll have to look into that.
So how should we proceed with this? I don't think we have a consensus on anything quite yet, except that we do agree that the license can be used, particularly if we cross-tab it with existing rentals that we are aware of. Do we want to take any tougher action? Do we want to?
I think that'd be the first step. Well, I guess two separate steps. Is one, cross-check everything and just make sure they've all got licenses, and it'd be great to just get that report back.
Right.
The second is on this specific property, and maybe we know now, how long has it been a short-term rental? How many violations has it had? Has there been any enforcement? So we focus both on the overall issue so it doesn't get bigger, but target this one so that it doesn't continue to be a sore point in the community. And I don't know, Associate Planner Wolf, if we know the details of this one, how many, if the 9 noise complaints have come from the one place, I don't know if we know how long it's been a short-term rental. If you know that might be helpful tonight. If not, it would be nice whenever you've collected all the information to come back, it would be helpful to know that.
So I can estimate that the property on Carter had been a short-term rental for approximately 6 months.
And it does or doesn't have a business license?
It does have a business license.
And they have been cited?
There is no citations issued on record with the police department or with code enforcement.
Do we know how many complaints have been with it?
I believe it's been 3 with code enforcement. I'm not sure how many with police department.
So short of citation, then we're showing up and we're giving them a warning to quiet down, basically.
That's correct.
So if there's been 3 code enforcements, we haven't levied any fines to them yet?
That is because we have not received any formal complaints. We've only received phone call or email complaints that are non-formal.
Where within the process is the revocation of a business license? Is that within the purview of the city manager's office, or planning, or PD? I mean, who makes the call on a revocation of a business license, and is there a standard to do that?
It would be the department head that issues. So which department issues the business license? Is it planning?
Maybe. I mean, could I suggest that maybe because we're sort of asking, factual questions, and I hate to put people on the spot. I mean, could this be part of the follow-up? Is that part of the report back in terms of both the data and also just maybe a discussion, maybe in conjunction with the city attorney, of the existing enforcement mechanisms and kind of how they would work? I think that would be helpful because I feel like we're kind of grabbing here and have questions here. It might just be nice to see it in a little bit more comprehensive way.
Yeah, I think direction to staff to look at our current mechanisms and see how we can tailor those in order, as a first step, use that to deal with problem properties.
Yeah, either enforce as they are in this way, if that would work, or like you said, tailor it appropriately if needed. But I also am having a little bit of disconnect between when a citation is to be issued, and then when that escalates to a fine, and then at what point does revocation become part of the conversation?
Yeah.
And I think instead of just doing that piecemeal through conversation, it might be nice just to have it laid out so that we can have a more comprehensive discussion.
Agreed.
Yeah, it'd be nice with this, like, we look at it more generally, and then we look at the specific property, and kind of, it'd be nice to understand what the options are that have been considered. Because I understand there's been, code enforcement has been there 3 times, and we've gotten emails, but that hasn't been a formal complaint, but I could see like a resident saying, what do you need me to do to make a formal complaint? I've come to the city council, I've submitted stuff, and so somewhere like, at some level, we may be getting caught up in some of our own red tape, and I just want to know kind of like, I think Councilmember Creeps said the right thing, is to take a step back and let's look at everything and kind of think through it, and think through the different angles, and I know that the planning department will take this very seriously and give us a thorough report so that we can have I think a more structured, intelligent discussion at a future meeting.
No, I definitely know that residents feel like they don't quite understand the code enforcement process, and that's been brought up in another context where where residents feel like they have been raising concerns, but don't feel like they necessarily go anywhere, and definitely, get the sense that there's some education to be done about that process, especially if we're requiring something more formal than might otherwise be kind of readily understood by a layperson.
Is that adequate direction?
You think? And it's getting late.
Yes, report back on mechanisms, comprehensive report on what action can currently be taken in response to short-term rental complaints. Got it.
Okay. I think that concludes our last discussion item. Are there any suggested items for future agendas? Not hearing any. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Okay.